And 1025 The Game. So glad to be back. Caroline Fenton is here. Hello, Caroline.
Hello. Happy to have you back.
The man in the middle, Ian Safar, is here today. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
So, Caroline, it's always a first something for Caroline. It's like you're a rookie, kind of.
It
honestly.
is. Well, it is my rookie year.
It is your rookie season. And today is a very important day in the Caroline Fenton rookie season. Ian, do you know why today is an important day in Caroline's rookie season?
I think so.
What would you say if you had to guess?
Well, it's our first look ahead. Oh, excuse me, my phone is ringing. Our first look ahead to the Titans' first opponent.
See, there you go. It's your first Wednesday. The way we do it here is we will not talk unless they're playing like the New England Patriots with Tom Brady or the Super Bowl. We will not talk about a following opponent on a Monday. It will never happen. Very few teams have the possibility of us talking about them on Tuesday. This comes from somebody who realizes that sometimes it's hard to program 20 straight hours of talking about the same game. So you have to kind of figure your way around it. And then Wednesday, unless it is a total just dump team like Jacksonville, Wednesday is when you can start talking about the game. The team returns to practice on Wednesday. The coach has his press conference. Tannehill has his press conference, which we will get into. But it's almost always on Wednesday. Again, if it was Jacksonville, it'd be a little different. Arizona was a little questionable, Ian. You know, could we get 3 days of talking about the Arizona game out? I was worried about it, but because it's the first game, I feel like there's more added importance to it. So I want to start on this topic, which is, what do we feel about the Arizona Cardinals? And I'm going to say this. I think in life, a lot of times, like, you want things to be good, right? Your buddy's dating a girl you kind of like. You want it to work out. And so people talk themselves into, oh, this can work out. Even though it's like, she's kind of got an issue. Like, she doesn't want to marry, and I'll just use me as a guy. She doesn't really want to marry a Jewish guy, and, like, he's Jewish. I'm not sure it's really going to work out. But I'm telling you, this is going to work out. People say all the time. And they talk themselves into it. Like, the NFL draft is the definition of groupthink, where everybody sits there and talks themselves into. I saw Marcus Spears on ESPN. They had a little video, and it says, Spears thinks Wilson will be better than Mac Jones. I was like, everybody thinks Zach Wilson will be better than Mac Jones. That's why Zach Wilson went second and Mac Jones went 15th, because everybody thinks Zach Wilson is ultimately going to be better than Mac Jones. I don't understand the take in that. But what that is it's, we've convinced ourselves that Mac Jones is going to be really, really good. So now it's a hot take to say the guy who was taken second in the same draft is better than the guy who was taken 15th.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that this year the Jets are going to be better than the Patriots.
No, and I have no idea what Spears' take was. I didn't click it.
Yeah.
So
But I did see that headline.
But I think Arizona is one of those teams where everybody seems to maybe try to talk themselves into it. I have never thought Kyler Murray was going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. Never. I would say this, and I don't watch Arizona every week. I think Kyler has done a better job in 2 years than I thought he was ever going to be in the NFL. And I don't think Kyler's a Pro Bowler. I don't think Kyler's a top 10 quarterback. I don't think you can win with Kyler. I don't think he's a particularly good passer. I think Kyler's shortcomings are what everybody was worried Lamar Jackson was going to be when he went at the end of the first round as a rookie. But nobody wants to talk about it because nobody really watches Arizona. And again, they can talk themselves into it. I never understood why the Arizona Cardinals hired Cliff Kingsbury. The guy couldn't win at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. The guy gets fired as a head coach in college, and not even a good school. I mean, he was an alum of Texas Tech. When I was a kid, he was the star quarterback at Texas Tech. He gets fired at Texas Tech, can't get a college head job, is an offensive coordinator for 5 seconds at USC, and now he's head coach in the NFL? What? And I've never looked at Arizona as a threat. I have never looked at it. I do not look at them today and say, better than the Rams, better than Seattle, better than San Francisco. And you're talking to somebody in me who thinks that the Rams are overrated. Stafford is not going to be that good in Los Angeles. He'll be a little bit better than he was in Detroit, but it's not going to be night and day for Stafford with the Rams. And I'm not, drinking the Kool-Aid so much on San Francisco, even though they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I just don't believe in the Arizona Cardinals. They've taken guys in the first round that were supposed to be game changers. They took Isaiah Simmons last year out of Clemson. And that dude was supposed to be like Javon Curse. Hey, he can do it all. You can play him at safety. You can play him at linebacker. You can play him at pass rusher. Guy didn't do anything as a rookie. Now, they've got good players. Rodney Hudson, the center's an all-pro. DeAndre Hopkins is an all-pro. J.J. Watt was once an all-pro and still is pretty good. Buda Baker is a really good safety. I mean, Arizona's got some good players. I don't watch Arizona. I saw them play a couple of times last year in primetime. I watched them on the Titans bye week, I think it was. I want to say on the Titans bye week that they hit a Hail Mary and beat Buffalo. And they beat the Cowboys last year, and Kyler didn't even really throw the ball. But that was one of those, the Cowboys are terrible kind of games. But that's all I know about Arizona. So with that, I asked this question to the two of you. What do we think about the Arizona Cardinals? And I will say it with this caveat as I go to ask you and then start talking a little bit more. With this caveat, if the Titans don't show up and play on Sunday, they'll lose. Like, Arizona is not so bad that they can't go out there and they can't possibly lose or screw it up or anything like that. But if the Titans go out there and turn the football over, or if the Titans go out there and act like, hey, we're the Titans and we're supposed to be one of the best teams in the league, if they have that approach out there on Sunday, they will lose. Kyler Murray can beat them. J.J. Watt can beat them. Buda Baker can beat them. DeAndre Hopkins, as we have seen many times, can beat them. But as far as, like, on paper, Cardinals-Titans, I don't see much of an even matchup here.
I'm with you in that I do think that the Titans are a better team. They have a better roster on paper from what we know now, since week one could kind of virtually be a question mark since we haven't seen these teams play. So I do think the Titans are a good team, a better team than Arizona, but I do think that the Titans may struggle against Arizona because if you look at the different tiers in the NFL right now, I look at the Titans as not quite in that elite group, but in that second group. Could make a run for the playoffs, could be a really exciting team this year, and I view Arizona, I think, a tier beneath it. May or may not make the playoffs. If they do make the playoffs, they won't be very deep. So I do think the Titans are a better team, but I have a weird feeling that Arizona is going to give them a little bit of trouble.
Ian, what do you think of the Arizona Cardinals?
They are a tricky team to kind of figure out, They have some really talented players on offense. When you think of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and A.J. Green, I don't know. I feel like they're relying a little bit too more on some aging players.
Sure.
Especially on defense. I don't know. It seems like they're expecting J.J. Watt to be like their main defensive lineman and to play a lot. And at this point in his career, I'm not sure you can, plan on him being a huge impact play in and play out at this point in his career. So they are tough to figure out. Their offense is extremely dynamic. It is going to be tough to keep Kyler Murray in the pocket, right? He is going to be running around. But I do think the Titans are the better overall team. They are a more cohesive unit, and they are better coached, and they have better chemistry. So I will also take them to win.
Here's the two things I can't get over with Arizona. I don't like their coach, and I don't like their quarterback. At the end of the day, when it comes to that team, I have never understood how Kingsbury got his job. Kingsbury had success in 2012 as the offensive coordinator under Kevin Sumlin at A&M. He was Johnny Manziel's offensive coordinator. He gets the head job at Texas Tech because he's an alum, doesn't do anything there, and then all of a sudden gets fired and gets an NFL job, and nobody says, wait a minute, is this cat at all qualified for this? I remember when they hired him, and they said, well, he's friends with Sean McVay. What? Like, oh.
Why does that make you qualified?
Like, I didn't, first of all, and the NFL went through about a 2-year period where every team, every owner, every executive, everybody who made decisions on hiring coaches forgot that Sean McVay lost the Super Bowl. They were treating it as if he's won 50, as if he were like the Phil Jackson of the NFL. And he's not. But Kingsbury, I don't like him at all, and I don't like Kyler. I really don't like Kyler. Now, DeAndre Hopkins scares me. A.J. Green's probably, done. And Rondale Moore is a young rookie. And so the fact that he's a young rookie and he's got skills and we saw him light it up at Purdue, like that bothers me a little bit of the, oh, boy, if he gets loose, oh, God. But it's Hopkins. Their running game doesn't worry me. Their tight ends don't worry me. It's Hopkins. And Hopkins is a bad boy. Like, I will give Hopkins that. I mean, he is. But I don't think if the Titans play the way they played against the Ravens in the playoffs 2 years ago, where they pretty much just made Lamar beat them from the pocket, if they make Kyler stand in that pocket and they just, instead of trying to sack him, they just kind of like, all right, dude, what do you want to do? I don't think he's good enough to beat the Titans. And again, Titans turn the football over, they're going to lose. Titans miss field goals, they're going to lose. Titans fumble the ball, make penalties, they're going to lose. Titans don't show up to play, they're going to lose. But this is all about the Titans, in my opinion, and it's not about the Cardinals. I do not look at the Cardinals as a team that I think, okay, they're going to go out there and there is no way to stop X, Y, Z. And I don't have that. Now, do I worry about the right tackle position that Vrabel hasn't? Doesn't seem like Vrabel feels confident in naming somebody to start there against a J.J. Watt or a Chandler Jones. Yeah, okay, now that bothers me a little bit. But you can always figure things out. I just don't have respect for the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't mean that in like I'm looking down on them or I'm spitting on them or I'm saying that they're a crap organization or a crap team or anything like that. I just don't. When I look at Seattle, who you play in week 2, I got a lot of respect for the Seattle Seahawks. You look, even like Indy, who has all of their problems right now, I still, you got to respect some things about Indianapolis. You got to respect Matthew Stafford was never great in Detroit, and I think his move to L.A. is highly overrated for how much better they're going to be. But you got to respect L.A. They make the playoffs every year. They were in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. They've got a lot of good players. You got to respect the Rams. You got to respect the fact that the 49ers have that defensive line and that they've got some good skill players and a good coach, and they ended up in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and they were a Jimmy G connection to Emmanuel Sanders away from winning the game. You got to respect that. There's not really anything about Arizona. And again, I am not an Arizona Cardinals expert. But there is just really not anything about this team that I feel like we've got to respect. That we have to look at and say, hey, we got to respect this now. I don't see it. I don't respect the coach. I don't respect the quarterback. I do, Hopkins and Budda Baker, yes. But I'm not a huge Cardinals guy.
J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, I respect.
But they both have issues right now. J.J.'s old. Chandler's hurt. So I don't know. Like, Chandler didn't even want to be there, which is kind of odd. But I just look at this game and I think, look, it's Titans to lose. If the Titans screw it up, it's on them. I cannot see the Arizona Cardinals being a team that we have to worry about the Titans playing their game and losing to at home. This reminds me of a couple of years ago. Ian, I don't know if you remember this, but the Titans had won 2 games back-to-back. They had gone on the road to Dallas on Monday Night Football and won, and then they embarrassed the Patriots at Nissan Stadium. And this is like the defending champion Tom Brady Patriots. And they just embarrassed them at Nissan Stadium. And everybody was feeling pretty good about the Titans and thinking they'd be okay. And they're getting ready to play Indianapolis. Now, Indianapolis had Andrew Luck, and that's a quarterback I like a lot more than Kyler Murray. But I said, hey, if they go in there and Andrew Luck dictates the terms of the game, they're going to lose. But if they go in there and they play their game, if they play Titan ball, they're going to win. So that's the key to this game. They got to go in there and play Titan ball. And Floyd looked at me and goes, what the hell is Titan ball? And I was like, it's Titan ball.
It's a nice buzzword.
Titan ball. And he just like laughed and chuckled and was like, what the hell is Titan ball?
It's like we heard that so many times from the Predators in the playoffs was we're going to go out and play the game. Predator way.
Yeah, play our
What's
game.
the Predator way?
Yeah, what is that?
What does that mean?
So I'm going to say it like this. If the Titans go out there Sunday and play Titan ball, I am not worried about the Arizona Cardinals. I'm sorry, GM. If they play Titan ball Sunday, give it to Derrick Henry, hit some big plays here and there, show just a little bit improved defense, they're going to win Sunday because I ain't worried about the Cardinals. 615-737-1025. That's how we're opening this show. It is Wednesday of game week. It is Caroline's first Wednesday of a Titan game week. Here's the question. What do we think about the Cardinals? And when I say we, I mean you. 615-737-1025. Should we be this arrogant about how not good we think the Cardinals are? 615-737-1025. And what about their quarterback? Because I never see anybody say anything bad. And yet, whenever I watch, which is not very often, when it comes to Arizona, I don't see a lot good. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. We are delivered by TriStar Moving. Let me tell you about my friends at TriStar Moving. I've been telling you guys about TriStar Moving since November. I was even telling Caroline today a story about when I moved with my friends at TriStar Moving. They are fantastic. I absolutely freaking love TriStar Moving. They are fantastic. And they make it so stress-free, seriously. I called Garrett, out. He came out, took a look at everything. One of the owners, he and Robert, they're local guys, took some pictures. Next thing you know, boom, the whole crew's out here, and it was done. And all the stress of moving, and oh, my God, what about my old house? And oh, my God, what about my bed? Like, oh, is that? Nope, not with them. They took care of all of my furniture. They got home protection, covering your floors, banisters, railings, door jambs, even the doors themselves. And they've got mattress protectors and TV protectors. Someone like me who's got a lot of TVs. This company is on the rise quickly. TriStar Moving. They are my official movers. They hold a very high standard, and I can stand by that because I moved with them. Give them a call, 615-640-1219. NashvilleMoving.org/radio if you want to get with them online. They'll give you 5% off your entire move. That's TriStar Moving, my official movers, 615-640-1219, NashvilleMoving.org/radio. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you for TriStar Movers.
Is this offense unique in this day and age in the NFL in any way? And if so, or even if not, what's the biggest challenge of lining up and getting ready to prepare against it?
I mean, I think, unique. I mean, there's times where people won't huddle. I don't know if it's the extent to which they do it. But that's what, the beauty of coaching is believing in something and getting your players to believe in it, which they've done. We just have to, be able to get ready, get substitutions in there quick. They'll sub and, not huddle and stand over the football, and we'll have to, try to replicate that in practice this week.
That was Mike Vrabel talking about the Arizona offense. They got some names. A.J. Green's kind of old. DeAndre Hopkins is probably one of the best receivers in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Rondale Moore's a rookie, but a rookie that I liked a lot, thought was a pretty good player. Who's their running back?
Chase Edmonds. And they brought in James Conner from Pittsburgh.
Okay, now James Conner. Okay,
yeah, that's a good one.
And Rodney Hudson, the center, has been an All-Pro before. So there's that. Then there's Kyler. And I'm sorry. I always thought, I remember in the draft in 2019, the draft's always big to talk about players and remembering what you thought about players before they came out. But for some reason, because the draft was here, it felt like more important. I don't know why. But because the draft was here in the 2019 draft, it's like I can vividly remember everything about that draft. And I never liked Kyler. I remember when we were at the Combine that year, and Kyler measured at 5'10". Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, if I was like that, if I was Kyler, I would let myself grow like the Patrick Ewing flat top, and I would have tried to measure in at 6 foot. Because remember, it was like, well, is Kyler going to be big enough or something like that? And Kyler measured at 5'10". And my buddy Andy Sweeney's the program director in Louisville, does the afternoon show. And we were all at the Combine. And he texted me, and Mike Keith and Dave McGinnis, and they were doing a draft show or something, or a preview podcast, whatever, in the Radio Row area. And Andy Sweeney goes, your boys with the Titans just said, since Kyler Murray is 5'10" now, do we think he goes in the top 15? And he wanted to go over there, pick up the mic, and go, he's going number 1. I never liked Kyler. I when I saw him at A&M, I thought it was kind of a gimmick. Mm-hmm. When he was at Oklahoma, I still I knew he was a great player, but I never liked his game.
What did you think was a gimmick?
With Kyler?
It was all run game?
It's all running. I said John Glennon had a stat earlier today that's most 15-plus mile-per-hour rushes in the NFL. Kyler Murray 1, Derrick Henry 2. That's not a franchise quarterback. No, I'm not saying you can't be a running quarterback and win games, but you're not, to me, you're not a good quarterback. If you give me running stats as to why you're good, then okay. I'll take Drew Brees. That kind of thing.
Well, yeah, of course you would take a throwing quarterback. You would take an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady over a run-heavy quarterback.
I'm looking at it right now, and I look at it like Kyler. I do this when you go to Football Reference, and they have, you can look at people's awards. And he made a Pro Bowl in 2020.
He was Rookie of the Year 2019.
So he's got, Rookie of the Year, all-rookie team. He's made the top 100 twice. He's the 39th best player, according to the NFL Top 100 list. The 39th best player. And I still just don't think Kyler's all that good.
I don't think you're giving him enough credit.
Because clearly I'm not.
I don't think that he is as good as the national media makes him out to be. I think that he is a national media darling because it's a name that everyone knows. But he's a run-first quarterback, but he's good at it. How long can he sustain the level that he is a run-first quarterback? I don't know, but he's only in his third year. And I think that if we start to see his arm progress a little bit more, his throwing a little bit better, his accuracy a little bit better, then my mind may start to change. But I'm not high on Kyler Murray. I'm not as high as the national media is because of exactly that, because he is so run heavy. But I'm not going to count him out as a bad quarterback.
I'm looking at this right now, his awards and the subjective stuff, the are you good? His subjective stuff is not, it's, great. Again, Rookie of the Year, all rookie team, top 100 last year, top 100 this year at 39. He's been Player of the Week 4 times. He made the Pro Bowl last year, which Tannehill didn't. But I think if Tannehill was in the NFC, he probably would have made the Pro Bowl. But you look at all the stats that really matter. You want to know where he is close or leads the league in his career?
What?
He was sacked 48 times as a rookie. That led the NFL. Last year, he had 6 pick sixes. That was good for first in the NFL. No, he was 6th in the NFL. He was 3rd in pick sixes as a rookie.
Good.
Those are bad stats.
But he's also a rookie.
No, he is. And last year, he had 3 comebacks, 4 game-winning drives. I mean, Tannehill led the league in both of those last year. I think it was 6 and 5. And so there's not a stat. And again, football is not about the stats. But I just, every time I turn on the TV, I'm like, I'm just not a huge fan of Kyler. I'm not a Kyler believer. I'm sorry, everybody. And I say this knowing that there could be calls on Monday that are like, Jared, you said Kyler Murray wasn't any good. And it's like, I'm willing to be wrong on this. I just do not love the guy. And I am, Ian, you can back me up on this. I am very good at falling in love with people when they're young players.
I'd say that's fair.
And I just don't. I have never liked Kyler. I have never liked him.
I think because I don't see any longevity with Kyler. I think he's going to be, a top 100 player for about 5 or 6 years. He's not going to have the length of the career like Tom Brady.
I think Kyler's like Mariota.
You think?
Yeah. I think Kyler is
He's already more accomplished than Mariota.
Is he?
Was Mariota ever Rookie of the Year?
Well, Mariota's pretty close. Mariota, after the first 2 years, people thought Mariota. They thought Mariota was the next great one. I'm talking about the people here.
Right.
And I think outside of here, there was a lot of optimism around Mariota. I mean, the reason that Mike Mularkey got fired, nobody wants to talk about this, but the reason that the fans were okay with Mike Mularkey getting fired is because they thought he was holding Mariota back, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. And then Mariota got hurt a bunch and was ineffective, and then it was like, okay, it's Marcus is the problem. I'm not a Kyler guy. I'm not a Kyler guy. All right, I see your phones are all lined up. Let's get to them. 615-737-1025. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Lee is going to kick us off today on the Titans. Thank you for calling the show. Go ahead, Lee.
Hey, Jared. How you doing today?
Good.
Well, it doesn't really matter much, I don't think, about the quarterback. The last I looked at the professional betting line by guys who really know these teams, we're a field goal favorite. So on a neutral field, they're saying these two teams are equal. We're even. So this thought about us being so much better than this bad Arizona team, I think, is a little misguided. What do you think?
So I would disagree with the betting line. I appreciate your call. I think that's kind of the week one. Hey, we don't really know about Arizona. We don't really know. The thing about the NFL is every year there's a team the first 3 weeks you're like, oh, that team? That team looks like they could win the Super Bowl. And you never know who it's going to be. If Joe Burrow goes out, and this is not going to be Cincinnati, but if Joe Burrow goes out and just lights it freaking up the first 3 weeks and the Bengals are 3-0, and I don't even know who they play. But if that
Minnesota.
happens that's possible. Minnesota, we could sit there and say, are the Bengals for real? And then you'll have Stephen A. Smith and Michael Irvin yelling at each other about it, and that's how they're going to do it. I didn't say that I don't think the Titans can lose. I don't want the caller to interpret what I said in the first segment about not loving Arizona. I don't want them to think that I think the Titans are invincible in this game. If there is a reason to guarantee a victory, I will guarantee a victory. And I am not guaranteeing a victory, and I'm not calling a victory. I'm worried about the Titans doing stupid things. There's no doubt. But as far as, Arizona is concerned, if this were the Seahawks coming here this week and not Arizona, I would have a lot different outlook of the opponent that they're playing. 615-737-1025. We're back to your phones because they are just loaded up here today. Chris Sanders will join us later this hour. Stillman and Company, ESPN 1025 The Game. Car buying with my friends at Edmunds. Let me tell you all something about buying a car. I've done it many times, and I always get nervous every time it comes down to what kind of car do I want? And sometimes you got to test drive a couple, but you don't want to test drive a 50 or 60. So you can narrow down your search with my friends at Edmunds. And the demand for cars are back, so you need the experts to tell you what you're really looking for. Edmunds has been taking the stress out of car shopping for over 50 years. Their editors drive over 500,000 miles every single year, testing thousands of hundreds of hours on new vehicles. They review almost every car on the market and rank the best ones in each category. So that way, you don't have to test drive 55 cars. You can really get it down to 1 or 2, and then you can give it a buzz yourself. When you're ready, Edmunds makes it easy to find options in your area with accurate price estimates. Search by color, model, special features, engine type, drivetrain, price, distance, and more. They even show you dealerships that are offering home delivery. I like that. Edmunds is here to guide you to your perfect vehicle. Visit Edmunds.com to see their best car rankings and search for vehicles near you. That's EDMUNDS.com, because for cars, there's Edmunds.
You know, he's fast, he's explosive, he's athletic, you know, he's quick, great short area quickness, you know, makes a bunch of guys miss, knows where the first down marker is every time he runs, you know, very aware of that. Mentioned the other day the strength of his arm, you know, I thought was something that, not having studied him, really stood out, you know. And so, I mean, he seems pretty comfortable, doesn't seem ever, you know, too rattled, you know, seems like very good composure, demeanor.
That was Mike Vrabel on Kyler Murray. And notice it wasn't anything like he's got a lot of control of that offense. He pushes the ball down the field. He's able to throw into tight windows. He's, you know, the things that really scare you about a quarterback. Mm-hmm. It was he's athletic, he's explosive, he's got a rocket arm.
Which, well, two of the first three, or the first two of those three, I think, are true.
Now, I'll say this. It scares me that he could bust out of the pocket, break one for 65.
100%.
That scares me anytime you play a guy like that. But again, we're talking about threat to the Titans. I promised your phones. We'll do that. Chris Sanders will join us later this hour for his thoughts on the Arizona Cardinals. Robert in Nashville is up next. Thank you for calling the show. Always good to hear from you, Robert. You go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Jared? I always hear the good from you. I always hear from you, too. Glad to hear from you. Sorry about that. Got choked up. I was drinking.
You're
something.
okay.
Okay. Jerry, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at on the Titans end that a little concern for me. One of them is the offense. I mean, we got the veteran players out there, and what I've been listening to lately, they hadn't been really playing with each other out there practicing. And, with that being said, I mean, they could come out there and choke and, lose this ball game. And then the defense, I'm a little concerned about because in history has shown the Titans have had, more penalties than, anything. And so, they could very well go out here and stink this game up because of the penalties and lack of not practicing altogether. So it could, I'd hate to say it, so it could be a very, shocker for them. And also, I'd like to say this last but not least, Arizona, they may come in with this chip on their shoulder and feel like, hey, we've been counted out of. Hey, we're a lot better than what everybody, is saying that we are. So they could come in there and play really hard and tough and be counted out, counted short. So, I think it could very well be, a ball game in that instance. But, I don't know. We shall see. But, we do got a good coach now, and, that's always a plus. But, one thing I will say, that the Titans ain't got to deal with that, what's his name? I can't even think of his name now. Malarkey freak. That Malarkey freak. I got all tied up because he'd be over there on the sideline dancing. So, anyway, that's all I got. I'm enjoying your show, and, you keep doing a good job and, keep bringing those memories up. We love you guys.
Robert, I hope the GM heard that because every time, and I appreciate your call, every time that Robert would call in to bitch about Mike Malarkey, it just brought a smile to both of our faces. Every time. Robert was the leader of the hate the Mike Malarkey fan club. I remember he hated Malarkey the whole time.
He always calls him a freak.
He always calls him a freak. I remember when they beat the Seahawks in Malarkey's second year to go. I remember like early on the first year they started off 1-3, and he was like, "How long until we can put the coach on the hot seat?" But then they beat the Seahawks, and I think they started off like 3-1 that year. And it was like, whoa, the Titans might actually be pretty good or something like that. And I remember like one of the segments that we did was, you got to give Mike Malarkey credit for the way that they won this game and the coaching that and I can't remember the specifics.
I bet Robert in Nashville did not like that.
Immediately it was like, Jared, my issue with you is what you said about Malarkey. And I mean, we used to love it. When he'd call in to talk about Malarkey, we'd just let him go. You notice, that's the one caller that I never cut off. Like that I never interrupt and because it's always going somewhere. And
let him say his piece.
And we used to get such a kick out of it. I mean, the one that really gets me, because I remember like going back and I remember like sending this to people because it was so funny. The trade deadline a couple of years ago, he was talking about wanting to get rid of Mariota and Jarrell Casey. And it was like, whoa, that's a hot take. And so he's going off about wanting to get rid of Mariota or Jarrell Casey. And then he goes, but then that's not really the real issue. The real issue is the coach. And as long as we got Malarkey coaching this team, and he just goes off and on. And I remember
always finds a way to bring it back to Mike Malarkey.
Every time. And I just remember us looking at each other like, oh, my God, this is great.
Well, it's raining outside, and it's because of that freak Mike Malarkey.
So I've never told this story about Robert and his calls, and I promise we'll get back to your texts and thoughts on the game. I've never told this story that the Friday that Floyd passed away on a Saturday. That Friday, I broke down in the middle of the show, and it was because Robert had called in the first time in forever, and it was just hearing Robert talk, and, like Caroline wasn't, like, in on the inside joke, and, like just that whole thing at one time, and then I heard that Floyd was not doing very well and was not going to be around with us much longer, and I just broke down like in the middle of the show, and because I think the thing about this show is that our connection with the fans and the callers is very real, and somebody said to me yesterday that as long as you keep talking about the impact that Floyd had on you, and the impact that Floyd had on the station, and the impact that he had on the city, and the impact that he had on the fans, and that the fans keep talking about that, then he'll be with us for forever. And I think that's kind of true. And so that's just, kind of part of it. And it's just a lot. It's trying to think of the right way to say this, but, it means a lot to us, just like it means a lot, hopefully, to all of you. What do your texts say? 615-737-1025, Caroline.
Tommy texts into the text line and says, Kyler's not the best, but he makes plays happen when there's nothing. He definitely didn't deserve Rookie of the Year over AJ, though. We shouldn't worry about Arizona. We should only worry that it's week 1 with a new defensive unit and offensive coordinator. More curious than worried.
I forgot about that. And, by the way, to Robert's point about the Titans going out there and screwing up the game Sunday, I am not saying that that's not a possibility.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
the Titans could beat themselves on Sunday very easily.
And, this is your rookie year. You don't know. Ian, Oh, well, Ian's talking to Chris Sanders right now. But Ian, the Titans' propensity to screw something up like this is totally on the table. And the lack of practice time, I think, is worth discussing. And Todd Downing, I think, is worth discussing. And all the penalties, turnovers, out of shape, COVID, it's all worth discussing when it comes to Titans. I'm just talking about whether or not I think Arizona's any good. And I haven't had anybody that sat there that will put their foot down and say, yes, Jared, I think the Arizona Cardinals are a good team. That's what I said.
Because I don't think if anyone really knows if the Arizona Cardinals are a good team.
I don't think anybody thinks the Arizona Cardinals are a good team.
I think that people think Kyler is a good quarterback, that J.J. Watt is going to be a good addition to the Arizona Cardinals.
39th in the top 100, so who am I to complain? But 39th in the top. Tannehill is 83rd, and he's 39th. What's next?
Logan texts in and says, who is one-on-one with Hopkins? Not going to lie, I'm worried more about our secondary more than the D-line. Is that fair?
I'm going to tell you this. Who's one-on-one with Hopkins? Nobody. That I can promise you. Mm-hmm. Unless they blitz, nobody. This is what I think they're ultimately going to do. I think Jenkins has Green.
Okay.
And, well, I think it's going to be one of those kind of I don't think it's cat coverage. I think it's going to be, Jenkins is on one side and the other. Mm-hmm. I think they want Jenkins with Green. And then they're going to let Jenkins have Green, and that's that. Then I think you're going to get Fulton and help on Hopkins. And maybe they go with a veteran on Hopkins because he likes to push off, and so you got to get someone to push it back. I don't know, but I'm not. They are not letting DeAndre Hopkins get man coverage unless they absolutely have to. And so that whole thing about who's got to, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about Kyler running around and that your DBs can't stay on DeAndre Hopkins long enough. That I am legitimately worried about. Chris Sanders will join us next. Former Titans receiver. We'll get his thoughts as the Titans get set to take on the Arizona Cardinals. What does he think about them? We'll do that next with Chris Sanders. ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen in this Saturday as Nashville SC takes on Montreal. Pre-game coverage 6:45, and the match begins at 7. Chris Sanders next. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Silly Underdog Picks is back. Get your friends or family and play as a group. Sign up and play today. Pick the 3 football underdog teams you think will win each week for a chance to win weekly prizes like a pair of tickets to a sporting event or a concert in Nashville. Go to theGameNashville.com or the ESPN The Game Nashville mobile app. Sign up and play today. Silly Underdog Picks brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Chris Sanders joins us now, former Titans receiver. Week 1 on the way, Chris Sanders. So I got a couple of thoughts. I want to start with this one.
Let's go.
Which is Arizona as an opponent. I know every team in the NFL you got to take seriously, and anybody can beat anybody on any given day, especially a week 1. But when I look at Arizona, my thoughts on Sunday are not about Arizona beating the Titans, but more so the Titans beating the Titans. And I have not talked to anybody, granted, we don't live in Phoenix, but I have not talked to anybody who thinks the Cardinals are legitimately better than the Titans. What do you make of this team?
I mean, they're better. I mean, if you look at the defense, they struggled on defense last year. But then when you add J.J. Watt and then you get Xavier Collins, the linebacker, they just made your defense faster and bigger. So we really don't know because you have different guys. I know we can kind of go on their record last year and kind of what they did, but I don't think you got to discount that a little bit because it's a different team. It's a different identity, just like the Tennessee Titans. So it's going to come down to who makes the less turnovers and who makes the most explosive plays. So I know everybody's talking about the Titans and kind of discarding the Arizona Cardinals, but you cannot take the Arizona Cardinals lightly because it's the first game. Guys are going to make mistakes. Guys are going to be rusty. The timing's going to be a little off. So I think the Tennessee Titans can't go in saying, okay, well, it's just the Cardinals. This is a totally different team from last year.
So what are you more worried about? Are you more worried about the Cardinals coming in here and making plays to beat the Titans, or are you more worried about the Titans not playing the way that they should play, turning the football over, dropping passes, missing kicks, penalties, things like that, and then beating themselves?
I just think that I don't want to see the Tennessee Titans give up the explosive plays in the secondary. If you look at last year, the Tennessee Titans in the secondary gave up 36 touchdowns, and now you got an explosive offense. You got Hopkins, you got A.J. Green, you got Isabella, and you got Rondale Moore, guys that are very, very explosive. So I understand that, the Tennessee Titans are explosive also, but you got to remember, too, the Arizona Cardinals have an explosive team. So I just think that if the Tennessee Titans play their football by giving the ball to Henry and doing the play action, I think the Tennessee Titans are going to be successful by winning by 2 touchdowns.
How worried are you about the lack of practice time for Julio Jones, Tannehill, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, Derrick Henry? These guys have not really practiced it all together. 3 of them are coming off the COVID list, and we don't know what their conditioning is like or not like. How concerned are you there?
I just think that, I'm not really concerned. I know the time is going to be off a little bit, but the only thing I am concerned about, to just say we get into the fourth quarter and you got 10 minutes to go, are these guys in shape? I know that's kind of cliche and a lot of coach talk, but we don't look at those things. Those guys haven't done a lot of running. They haven't done a lot of things to be actually on the field and taking a lot of reps. So how do you handle if the Tennessee Titans are on offense and they have a 14 and 15 play drive, and then in the fourth quarter you got the offensive line that, some guys haven't played and then they're coming back. Will they be in shape? That's the only thing that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about A.J. Brown making plays. I'm not worried about Julio Jones making plays. I'm not worried about Henry not making plays. I'm just concerned about the conditioning part because a lot of your key guys wasn't in there.
What was that like for you at the beginning of a season?
Oh, it felt like I swallowed a cigarette because my chest was on fire. It's just hard because you can't, how can I say, you can't really feel the speed of the game until you're actually in the game. I know you're running sprints, I know you're running suicides, I know you're running a lot of reps, but you can't simulate being actually in a game because it's going so fast. You're looking at defenses, your heart is pumping. All these things are going on, and it just ends more. So what they're doing, if they rotate coverage, if they're playing coverage, just do my job and do my skill set.
Chris, Mike Vrabel was asked today about kind of self-evaluating himself after 4 years. How he kind of looks at things that he's done in the past and things he wants to do differently. And my question for you is almost a reaction to how I feel, which is I go into this season and I know Vrabel's a good coach.
Yeah.
Not everything he does I'm going to agree with. And I'm not saying that good coaches don't get fired in this league because they do. But what does it say? You played for Jeff Fisher, and I would say after a handful of years, you guys probably believed, hey, Jeff Fisher, he knows what he's doing. He's a good coach. What is it about that, the experience that Vrabel has, maybe kind of the expectation that we have in him as a coach, as he develops doing what he does?
I mean, he wants to live what he's preaching. I mean, he's always saying that I want to get better. I want to work on the little things. I want to make sure I have every rock unturned to be better. I mean, any great coach, any great athlete, anybody that's great, even though they've been a pinnacle of going to the playoffs and going to the AFC Championship game, he still wants to figure out, how can I get better? How can I be a better coach? How can I be better in substitution on defense or even on offense? So I just think that's a great trait to have. I understand he's a great coach and he's done a great thing for these Tennessee Titans, but he still wants to get better. You haven't won a championship, so there's still things that you have to improve on. So I just think for him, just saying that, he just wants to be the best and not just settle for just being okay.
So Vrabel's depth chart, Chris Sanders with us. Vrabel's depth chart has Jeff Swaim as the starting tight end, but I think Tannehill let the cat out of the bag today when he was talking about A.J., Julio, Derrick Henry, Chester Rogers, and Anthony Ferkser. And Chester Rogers listed ahead of Josh Reynolds as the starter in the slot. Yeah. I feel good about that with Rogers in the slot if that's what they do, and I think they're going to. I feel good about that. I said to you after the practice in Tampa Bay where they lit it up, I said Tannehill trusts him. And if Tannehill's going to throw the ball to Rodgers a bunch like he did in that practice, get him out there on the field. But I'm also a little nervous for two reasons. One, if Rodgers has already beaten out Reynolds for that job, that doesn't say much about Reynolds.
Right.
And more so, importantly, Chester Rogers spent the entire last season on the Titans practice squad and at no point during the season showed the Titans anything to elevate himself up off the practice squad. So I'm glad because what I saw out of Rodgers I like, and I think he and Tannehill get along. But then why couldn't he have been on the team last year, and what does that say about Josh Reynolds?
I mean, it's just looking at Chester Rogers, he's just been consistent. And when you have a player that's been consistent, you have to put him in the game. I mean, just look at what Reynolds has done since he's been. He's been hurt. He's been on the bike. He had 0 catches, he had 0 yards, he had 0 touchdowns in the preseason game. So if I'm a wide receiver coach, I'm going to go with the player that the quarterback feels more comfortable with. And if you're looking at practice, exactly what you said, when it's third down on 7 and 7, who was he looking for? He's looking for Chester Rogers. So I think it's, in my opinion, I would have put Chester Rogers there anyway because I just don't like what Reynolds does. I know he's a big guy. He's made some plays with the L.A. Rams, but just talking about consistency now. I'm not talking about when Reynolds played with the L.A. Rams. I'm talking about consistently now. That's what Rogers has been doing. He's making a catch. He's lining up right. The quarterback trusts him. So for me, I'm comfortable with it. I think he's going to make plays because here's what's going to happen. They're going to try to take A.J. Brown out. They're going to try to take Julio Jones out, and then also that's going to leave Chester Rogers with one-on-one with a linebacker or a safety, and that's a win-win for the Tennessee Titans.
Chris, the injury report is out today for the Titans. Chris Jackson, hamstring limited. David Long, hamstring limited. A.J. Brown, knee, did not practice today. Now, he had surgery on both knees in the offseason. We talked about it at training camp. He practiced more than the other guys like Julio Jones or Derrick Henry. But A.J. missed a lot of practices in training camp, and we had a sleeve on that knee, and I'm worried about A.J.'s knees. I mean, if he had to have surgery on both knees and then is already hurt with a knee and missing practice, fans will look at it like, hey, A.J.'s a baller. A.J. will be ready for the game. A.J. And I'm not saying he's not.
Right, absolutely.
But I'm worried about his knee, Chris.
I mean – I would maybe worry about it just a little bit, but if we get in the first series and he starts limping, then now I'm going to be worried. I mean, he's a tough guy and he's going to go out there and play, but I just think that, this is where Josh Reynolds comes in, and this is where, you can substitute those guys and eliminate a lot of the reps that A.J. Brown is taking. So, yeah, I'm concerned, but I'm not really over-concerned because he's going to go out there and make plays and he's going to do the right thing to make sure he takes care of his body. But the only thing that I'm a little worried about, that if he goes on the first series and he gets hit and all of a sudden he starts limping, then that's when I'm going to be concerned.
Are you not concerned that A.J. might have chronic knee problems? And I'm not just talking about this game, but I'm talking about for the season and his career.
Yeah, that's tough, man, because, when you're talking about a knee injury, as a wide receiver, you got to have chest over your knees, and you got to bend your knees. You're always cutting, and you change the direction. So when you have a knee problem, that just wear and tear, because if you look at A.J. Brown when he runs on the field, you can feel that guy. You can feel the force that when he plants and he changes direction, so it's putting that wear and tear on the knee. So when you're getting older and you're starting getting that problem now, later on in your career, it can definitely be a concern.
Chris Sanders, our guest. Chris will be with us on Sunday for
Yes,
the pregame
sir.
show. Our first pregame show
Let's
together
go!
since January, and Mark Howard will be joining us
Come on, Mark.
for the pregame show going forward. I'll let you two get into it.
Oh,
You
I'm
know,
going to yell at him all the time.
I guess I said this yesterday. I've been doing, pregame, or I've been listening to Mark Howard on the pregame show since I was
Me
in middle
too.
school. And so,
Wow.
you
Wow,
played
he's
back
old.
then, it was so long ago. And really glad to have you and Mark on board this year.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it will never be the same as it used to
Yeah,
be all those
absolutely.
Sundays that we spent with the GM. But
We're going to make
but
him proud, though. We're going to make him proud.
I know he'd be proud, and I know that he would laugh when we tell him, one day that
Absolutely.
Mark Howard is in the pregame show. I'm sure he'd have a good chuckle about
Mr.
that.
Grouchy. I'm going to call him Mr. Grouchy. Mark is so grouchy.
Hey, I'm gonna let you and Mark go at it. I'm just instead of me being the one who gets crushed, I'll let you and Mark go at it.
Oh, we're going to get you too now. You're
Oh,
not
I
out of
know.
the equation. You know that.
Chris Sanders, as always.
Appreciate
Chris,
you,
we'll
Doc.
see you Sunday, man.
Okay, man. Thanks.
Yep, Chris Sanders joining us on the program here. Speaking of the pregame show, don't miss the best pregame show live from Rock Bottom Brewery downtown this Sunday. The pregame show, yours truly, Mark Howard, Chris Sanders, 9:30 to 11:30, again at Rock Bottom Brewery prior to the Titans and the Cardinals. And the pregame show is brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, and Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. Look forward to that. The Titans made a roster move yesterday that I don't think people are talking enough about. I think there are some legitimate ramifications to it, and I really want to talk about it because there's a selfish reason involved. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5. The game, Titans and Cardinals this weekend. Oh, my goodness, football season. Tomorrow night, the first game, Dallas, Tampa Bay. We live in this very selfish society. Have you noticed this?
Yes.
Like on a
For
scale of
quite
1 to
some
10, with 10 being the most selfish a society could be, the United States of America, in my opinion, is an 11.
Probably.
I mean, in terms of selfishness. Now, I'm not one of these people that doesn't love America. I love America.
Great place.
You can't love America more than I do. You can love it the same, but you can't love it more.
Noted.
Maxed out how much I love America. But we are the most selfish society. I mean, it is amazing how selfish
the
we are.
argument could be made that everything someone does is selfish.
How so?
Let's say if you go volunteer. You do that, and you feel like you're doing something for others, and it makes you feel good. So it technically could be considered selfish.
Okay, but if you lost your house in a flood and I just let you stay at my house and didn't brag about it or anything else, but I just did it so that you had somewhere to stay.
Which would be very, very nice of you. I would appreciate that.
That's not selfish.
You would feel good about yourself. I don't think this, but this is an argument that is made a lot. Is
So
that every decision you make, everything you do is selfish.
So my argument for this is that is not what I'm talking about when I talk about how we are a selfish society.
Okay, then expand.
But if you look at like voting trends, like across America, people vote on things that affect them. Like very rarely does somebody vote on like a foreign policy decision. Now, if it's about World War II, that's different because World War II affected almost everybody. And the fear with World War II was real. The fear with Vietnam, there was a draft. People were literally getting drafted who didn't want to go fight. They were getting drafted in Vietnam. And people had very strong opinions about Vietnam because it affected them. We don't see that as much anymore with the military. We don't have drafts. We don't have, and people still feel strongly about the military, but not the same way that they did before when it was Vietnam. People vote on what affects them. That's what people care about. What affects me? So yesterday there was a news item. Julio Jones restructured his contract. Did you see that?
I did.
Julio Jones, just a restructure. Here's all the money in a signing bonus. Clear up some cap space for this year, which, by the way, the Titans were over the cap, and they had to restructure a contract. And they restructured Julio Jones. And I found this to be interesting for a couple of reasons. But when I go back to it being, the selfish society, Corey Curtis on the news yesterday broke down the Titans restructuring Julio's contract. Now, Corey probably gets about 2 minutes to do sports at 6 o'clock. But he broke down, Corey broke it down about, Julio Jones, this is what it's going to look like next year, the year after that. And I watched that and I thought, you know how many Titan fans just see Julio Jones restructured contract? Okay. And just shrug it off and that's it. What would you guess? 98% of the fans probably do that?
Probably, because I think a lot of fans don't necessarily care about the contracts. Not a knock on any sort of fans, but why would you? All you care about is who's on your team and how they perform in the field.
And do you know why that is?
Why?
Because Julio's contract doesn't affect them.
That's true.
That's why it doesn't affect you. I mean, Julio gets all his money up front as opposed to week. What the hell you care? But here's why it's important. There's a couple of reasons. First of all, Julio Jones is 32 years old. By doing this, you are now fully committed to him next year, and you're committed to him pretty much the year after that. Because even if you release him, he's due $14.3 million next year, $14.3 million in 2023. Before this, they didn't really owe Julio that money. Now they really owe Julio that money because if they cut him, it's still going to be an $8.4 million dead cap charge. And nobody likes $8.4 million dead cap charges. So you essentially extended Julio's contract to that third year. So now you're really committed to Julio for 3 years. He's 32. So how are you going to feel when he's 33 and 34? I don't know. Most wide receivers at 34 years old aren't the same at 28 years old. We'll see with Julio. The second reason it's important is because they chose Julio. And you would think to yourself, well, okay, who else would they choose? And to me, there are two very obvious people that they didn't choose when it came to restructuring their contracts. And it's because they are almost not guaranteed anything next year. There's Taylor Lewan and there's Derrick Henry. And so they needed to get under the cap. They weren't under the cap. according to Jason at overthecap.com, they were not under the cap. So they were over it. And they had to restructure somebody. They had to redo somebody in order to get under it, which you have to be by week 1. They redid Julio. They didn't redo Lewan, and they didn't redo Henry. Why? My guess is they want this year to see how it goes for Taylor Lewan before they decide if they want him to be the left tackle next year at $15 million. I believe Taylor Lewan has no dead cap money after this season. So the Titans, knock on wood, let's hope he doesn't. Taylor Lewan can re-injure that knee. He can hurt something else. He can be ineffective. He can get you a bunch of penalties. He can do a lot of different things. And at the end of the year, move on. And they allowed themselves to keep that possibility. We talked a lot during free agency about, do you redo Lewan and essentially guarantee the next season? And the fans were saying, yes, he is the left tackle in 2022. Yes. The Titans haven't done that. They extended Tannehill's contract, which we'll get back to that in a second. They extended Tannehill's contract. They redid Julio Jones's contract, but they haven't touched Taylor Lewan's. Derrick Henry, I believe, is in a similar situation, where the first 2 years of the Derrick Henry contract were Derrick friendly, to where you couldn't really get rid of Derrick Henry. Not that you would have wanted to, but you really didn't. You couldn't just redo Derrick Henry's contract. Derrick Henry for this year is a $13 million cap charge. Next year, he's a $15 million cap charge, but if you release him, you save $9 million. I mean, that's 2 or 3 starters. So you could, in theory, we start to see Derrick Henry, after all these carries, start to go downhill. Again, you would never want to do it, but the Titans could. And it's also leverage on taking a pay cut. A straight pay cut, and not, well, we restructure a little money here, move it a little there. You can look at Derrick and say, Derrick, you're not getting any younger. You've been carrying the ball a bunch. You're not a 2,000-yard back anymore. You're a 1,300-yard back. You're a 1,200-yard back. How about, instead of a $15 million cap number next year, let's take that down a little bit, and basically you lose out on some change. You could do that. It's a leverage tool. And then after that, the Titans don't really owe Derrick anything. They owe him $3 million. As far as cap money, they owe him $3 million. And because there's nothing after that, the Titans, it's kind of like nerdish talk here. It all accelerates into 1 year. So after this year, if you wait till June 1st, release Derrick, it's 6 next year and 3 the year after that. So those are livable cap numbers that you can survive with. So they chose Julio and not Taylor, and Julio and not Derrick. And nobody is going to talk about this because it doesn't affect them. So to you, the fan, you see Julio restructure his contract, and that just means more money for the Titans. But that's not really what it means. Yes, it does mean more money for the Titans, but it means you are now more committed to Julio, and you're not willing to give that same commitment to Lewan or Henry. What do we think of that?
I understand not wanting to commit to Derrick Henry, especially if you look at the shelf life of a running back in the NFL and not wanting to commit to him beyond his prime. But isn't that the same concern with Julio?
Well, no, I have a much larger concern with Julio Jones than I do Derrick Henry.
Right. So why restructure Julio rather than Derrick Henry?
But that's the choice they made. I've been on record as saying I wouldn't have traded for Julio. I wouldn't have traded for Julio with that contract. And I do want to bring this up because I can. Remember in whenever the hell it was, June, when I said a simple restructure of Ryan Tannehill will not be enough to get you under the cap if you had Julio Jones?
Yes.
And everybody, oh, well, Jared, you're such a mad guy. You don't know anything about anything. You just say, oh, boy, just say. Remember that?
I do remember that, yes.
And then remember when Ian Rappaport incorrectly reported Ryan Tannehill's extension?
You won't let me forget it.
And remember how much crap I took for that?
Yes, I do.
And the fact that once we proved, so funny. Somebody once sent me a tweet when that all went down and said, "Oh, I'm sure you'll show Ian Rappaport how it's not that easy to do contracts." I texted Ian Rappaport, and I was like, "Dude, I don't think this is right." And he was like, "You were there the whole day."
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, no, I'm going to stick with this tweet."
Thanks for the heads up, but I'm going to stick to my reporting.
Yeah, and then 2 hours later, changed his reporting, updated it, didn't correct it. He updated it. Nice little choice of words there. That's why I have no respect for Ian Rappaport. Guy's a total fraud. And so everybody heard what they wanted to hear. So then everyone could pile on me. And they were like, see. And by the way, they weren't under the cap. That's why they had to redo Julio Jones' contract, which was something that I was not willing to do. I was not willing to redo that. I was not willing to commit to a third year for Julio Jones. I mean, and especially after what we heard last week about Julio Jones, about when Julio doesn't get his way, Julio turns into a crybaby. Now, again, I'm not sure if Vrabel's going to let that fly, but I'm also not banking my life savings on Mike Vrabel not letting that fly or that not becoming an issue. So, to your point, why would they do it? I think because they feel so committed to Julio. A second-round pick and the money.
They feel so committed to Julio, so they're committing to him more?
Yes. A second-round pick and the money. They don't feel that committed to Taylor Lewan. They don't feel. The thing about Derrick Henry with them is they were never truly committed to Henry until they signed him. And even that was kind of a concession on their part. Derrick Henry was, 26 years old last year when they signed him to that long-term contract? Mm-hmm. But they didn't have to sign Derrick to that contract. By every metric, Derrick lost. You had, what's his name? Used to be the head of the President's Association or the Players Association on ESPN, Ravens Corner, Dominique Foxworth. You had Dominique Foxworth saying he should hold out instead of play on the franchise tag. It was all just a matter of numbers and whatever that Derrick was due $10.5 million. Like, it's so circumstantial that the Titans were able to get Derrick Henry to work this contract that is so in their favor. It was all circumstantial. Derrick Henry was a second-round pick instead of a first-round pick, so he hadn't made all this money in his career. So he, $10.5 million to somebody who's made $5 million is a lot of money. Then you had a pandemic and everything was uncertain, and we didn't know if you were going to get through week to week to week. And if games weren't played, Derrick doesn't get paid. But if Derrick signs, he gets a signing bonus and he gets his money. And that was a part of it. And I even asked Derrick, I said, hey, would you have done this deal if there wasn't a pandemic? And he's, honestly, the pandemic is what put the stress on him to make him want to do this deal. So all these circumstances were in their favor. The Titans have never financially just been all in on Derrick Henry except for last year and this year, and that's it. And I don't think they want to be financially committed any more than they have to be. And I get it. But I'm with you. I'm not sure I want to be more financially committed to Julio Jones. So that's where they are. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So, again, I'm not sure people care about that. We live in this, what have you done for me society? What, does it matter? I'm not sure people care about it.
Well, I think people will care about it in 2023, 2024 when Julio Jones has zero production for the Tennessee Titans.
Well, people care about it in Atlanta when they had to get rid of Julio Jones because they've redone Matt Ryan's contract so much they didn't have any cap space. Mm-hmm. People care about it then.
Because it affects them.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like all those people that just used to say all this stuff about Floyd, about how, Floyd Reese ruined the cap. No, Floyd told you when it was going on, like, hey, guys, like for us to sign Derek Mason and Keith Bullock and Randall Godfrey and Blaine Bishop and to have all these guys, like, there's going to come a day where we don't have any money. And when that day happens, we're not going to be very good. And that's what happened. 615-737-1025. We had some concerns about Julio last week. Mike Vrabel with some very interesting comments today. I'll leave it at that regarding Julio. And I wonder if he maybe addresses those stories we heard in Atlanta without being asked about it. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I have been telling you about those guys for 3 3+ years now. And in large part, I've been telling you about those guys because for 3+ years, they've been taking fantastic care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Trust me. There's no better time to upgrade your essential home systems than this month with my friends at Hiller. Hiller is offering you credits for your old home systems. Trade in your old HVAC unit and earn up to $1,500 in credit towards select new systems. Upgrade from a standard water heater to a tankless water heater and earn up to $500 with your trade. Trade up to a new electrical panel and you can earn up to $500 in credit for your old one. It's that simple. Everybody likes that. It's almost like a car. Their work is backed by the happy you'll be or the service is free guarantee, and I will put my guarantee that you will be happy because I use Hiller, and I absolutely love them. Their technicians are continuing to take measures to keep you and your family safe and healthy on every single call. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Predators, the Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Julio is I think 32 now. What does it say for him? Not a ton of the guys that age are still in the elite class. What's it say for him that he's still getting the job?
I mean,
done?
I think he's an elite athlete. Obviously, he's been gifted. He's a very gifted person. I think he's worked very hard. I think he focuses on a lot of those things that help him, be able to stay productive, at his age. And I think it's going to be, let's say, Roger or Ben or some of those guys that play a lot of football for us. I think we have to do a good job between them and myself and, our training staff and Frank, like what these guys need, how much they need and or how little to be able to be at their best on Sunday. I think that's something that's evolving.
That was Vrabel on Julio Jones. Were you a little surprised there that he was talking about, Julio takes great care of himself. Julio's this, Julio's. But we've got to, monitor all these guys. And the reason I say this is because I do feel like how much Julio practices, what Julio does, that's going to be a topic all year. That is going to be something that it's like Shaq. You know, when Shaq was in Los Angeles, it all the time, and there was always a question of whether or not Shaq was dedicated enough. And it was, well, Shaq's got to take some games off, or Shaq doesn't practice here, or Shaq doesn't. But when Shaq gets in the finals, but you could tell, Kobe didn't like the fact that Shaq didn't always give his best effort, that Shaq didn't prepare himself during the summer like Kobe prepared himself. That was an issue with those two. And I think here's Vrabel, the ultimate, practicing coach, and here's Julio, a guy who doesn't practice a lot, and Vrabel saying, hey, we got to do a good job like we do with Ben Jones and other guys at making sure that they're ready for the game, which I think we're all okay with. Mm-hmm. There was another comment, and I'm not exactly sure what Vrabel had said that preceded it for a couple of days, but TD asked a question about holding the best players accountable when it comes to Julio Jones. Here's what Vrabel said.
That part of your initial conversation with Julio was you put the most on your best players. What would be an example of what you've put on him and how he's responded?
Well, that goes for everybody. I mean, that's just something that we believe in, is that we're going to hold the best players the most accountable, to try to spread that message throughout the team that, we have a standard and we have expectations that we believe in. And again, I think just holding him accountable to be ready to go. I thought that was, how we wanted to start the week with the group of guys maybe that, hadn't had as much work throughout training camp. I thought that was a great start on Monday. Looking forward to continuing that today.
Holding him accountable to be ready to go. Did that seem odd to you? Am I reading into it too much? The way that I interpreted that from Vrabel when I listened to that when talking about Julio was, look, we made a deal with Julio. He may not practice all the time this year, but Julio has promised us he'll be ready to go. That the stories that I heard out of Atlanta that I shared with you guys last week about Julio not wanting to go to walkthroughs, Julio not wanting to be on the field in third downs and 2-minute drills and things like that, and Julio running off the field when a play was called for him. That felt to me, listening to that, when Mike Vrabel used the word accountable, that felt to me like, hey, we've talked to Julio, and that ain't going to fly here.
I think it's one of those things that if you heard that, not knowing what we know about Julio in Atlanta and the things that he did in Atlanta, the way his attitude kind of acted up in Atlanta, I don't think that we would think anything of it.
Sure.
I think we would think it was just another thing that Mike Vrabel says. You hold your players accountable. You hold your best players to a higher standard. But knowing what we know about Julio, I do think that there was a little bit of an underlying tone there. And I do think it may be a little bit of a mix of coach talk as well. As, all of our best players are going to be held to this certain standard. We rely on all of our best players to be leaders. But I do think that there was a little bit of, hey, look, I read the article that you guys read. I hear the rumors that you guys heard. And it's not going to fly here.
I'm guessing that Vrabel and Robinson heard those things before they traded for him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have to believe that they knew Julio Jones had an attitude problem in Atlanta. Because when you talk about practicing, and this goes back to kind of the whole thesis statement of the hour, which is people don't care about things that don't affect them. It's like, hey, it doesn't affect me, whatever. And so people just don't care about them. Like, they don't really care about it if it doesn't affect them. All of a sudden, you talk about gas prices going up, people are pissed. That is when it affects me. So anytime we talk about the fact that Julio didn't want to practice, it turns into, well, I don't care about practice. Who cares about practice? But that's not really what a walkthrough where you're just literally out there. Okay, he goes up, he comes in. That's not practice. There's a difference between the two. That's not practice. And it's not like, he's a veteran player who wants to take some time off. But when it doesn't affect you, then it's not a big deal. Vrabel doesn't operate like that. Like the way the fans would think when they read Arthur Blank say, yeah, rub coaches and players the wrong way that Julio didn't practice all the time. That's not how Vrabel operates. My guess is Thomas Dimitroff, and again, this is the trail. Thomas Dimitroff, the general manager in Atlanta, drafted Julio. Julio was there when he was there for the whole time. He gave Julio 2 contracts, worked in New England with John Robinson. When Floyd got to New England, He took Thomas Dimitrov's office because Thomas went to Atlanta, I believe, or Thomas went to Kansas City with Pioli maybe. But he worked with John Robinson in New England. My guess is Dimitrov, who's out of the NFL right now, probably told John what John needed to know. And I'm guessing John knew these things when they acquired Julio. Vrabel talked when they acquired Julio about how he talked to Nick Saban. And just knowing what I know, Vrabel can't talk to Julio. John can't talk to Julio until they trade for Julio. That's called tampering. And the NFL will get you if you get caught tampering. But Vrabel can say to Nick Saban, you know, I heard that they called a gadget play for Julio at Carolina 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and he didn't run on the field. He ran off the field when they called the gadget play for him, and they ended up giving the ball to a rookie receiver, and they sniffed out the gadget play, and again, that's selfish. So Vrabel can tell Saban, hey, he did this selfish stuff in Atlanta. Can you assure me that that's not going to happen? Saban's agent is Jimmy Sexton. Julio's agent is Jimmy Sexton. It wouldn't surprise me if Saban picked up the phone, because this is how these guys operate. Saban picked up the phone and called Julio and said, hey, if they make this trade, you can't go there and do that. No, I understand, Coach Saban. I'm just saying. Like, I'm not mad at you that you did it, but you can't go. They will not make this trade if you don't assure me that you won't do that. I got you, Coach. Okay. Then if Saban, hand on Bible, swears to Vrabel, Julio won't act that way, then my guess is Vrabel can take that to the bank because I know Nick Saban, and if Nick Saban said that to me, I would take it to the bank too. I'm putting together these puzzle pieces of how I think this happened. Now, I don't believe in blind faith. I don't believe in, well, you know, Case Keenum's our starting quarterback and anything can happen. I don't operate like that. But I do believe that if what happened, the way that I just pieced this all together, Julio had a bad attitude, was a diva in Atlanta, and Robinson found out from Dimitrov, and Vrabel talked to Saban, and Saban talked to Julio, and Saban told Vrabel and gave him his blessing, then I feel better about the attitude stuff. And I think Vrabel there, he didn't push too hard on the Julio front about we need our best players to be our most accountable players. But to your point, if you know what to be worried about with Julio, I think there was kind of a, hey, he's going to do things the Titan way. Now, will he? I don't know. But I think that was the assurance I feel like I got from Vrabel with what he said today.
That at least there was a conversation had.
That at least, hey.
There's a mutual understanding that we don't tolerate.
Yeah, like, hey, it ain't coming around here. All right, that's what the coach said. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reactions. And again, the Titans have committed to Julio a little bit more, which I think is, I don't want to say odd, but it's interesting.
Didn't expect it.
The Titans named team captains today. Who are they? And do we buy that the players pick these guys? I'll explain why I'm skeptical. We'll do that coming up next. FanDuel Sportsbook app is my official sportsbook app. I love them. You're going to love them too. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Use the promo code JGM. The NFL is back, and FanDuel Sportsbook is celebrating with 40-1 odds on any Week 1 game. Who doesn't want to win $200 on a $5 bet? This is no Hail Mary. It's that simple. New customers get 40-1 odds when you place your first wager, and FanDuel is betting made simple. Plus, when you win, you'll get paid in as little as 24 hours. The one I would go with tomorrow night, I don't see any chance Dallas beats Tampa. I'm just going to throw that out there. See for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook app. They are always hooking you up with exclusive odds boosts, great promotions, and so much, much more. Just sign up with the promo code JGM, and you can win $200 on a $5 bet. That's promo code JGM, exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Must be 21 and older and present in Tennessee. New users only $10. First deposit required. Must wager in designated offer market. Max bonus $200. Bonus for Tennessee users fulfilled in site credit within 72 hours. Tennessee site credit expires 14 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789.
haven't had as much time on the field with Julio Jones, obviously, when it comes to practice, but I know there was mention of you working so much off the field. What are some of those things that you were able to do to kind of get on the same page for the start of the season?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we constant communication on what I'm expecting, what I'm seeing from in the pocket, how I'm expecting him to come out of certain routes or the adjustments to make. And then, now that we've been able to get on the field a few times, just getting his body language down and his speed, which has been good. I felt like we had a really good day together on Monday, and like I said, continue to build on that today.
You worried about Tannehill and Julio?
A little bit. Yeah.
Ian,
a little bit.
Ian, you worried about Tannehill and Julio?
I think it's only natural to be a little bit worried, yeah.
This is going to be crazy. I'm not that worried.
Why?
I think because, it won't be as good as it will be 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, like the chemistry, no doubt. But the thing about elite-level players is that when you're an elite-level player, you make elite-level plays no matter what. Julio Jones was a true freshman at Alabama playing in the Chick-fil-A Classic when they weren't even really all that good. And they just embarrassed Bobby Bowden's kid, who was at Clemson, got him fired, which is what set up Dabo becoming the coach of Clemson. They just embarrassed Clemson, and Julio was a big part of it right away. Like, when you are a great player, an elite player, when you step on the field, you're better than everybody else.
But he probably practiced with the quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah, but he was like 18.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather have a guy who's done this for a decade than an 18-year. Like, a guy who's done this for a decade doesn't need – the guy who's done this for a decade doesn't need the practice that a high school kid does. Like, there's a legitimate difference. And I remember A.J. Brown as a rookie. And A.J. Brown got hurt in training camp at least once, maybe twice. But nobody thought A.J. Brown – the Titans openly talked about Corey Davis as their number one receiver, which is something Vrabel doesn't normally do. Asked Vrabel who the starting right tackle is. We're working through some things. We got some guys in the mix. But when a guy's a bona fide starter, Vrabel will say it. And he said Corey Davis was their number one receiver. First game against Cleveland, Mariota throws a pass to to A.J. Brown, and he just runs for like 75 yards and gets knocked out at like the 2. And it was like, who's that? Who's that? I mean, I remember somebody texting me saying, A.J. Brown might be really good. By the fourth game, by the fourth game, we were having discussions, a 2:00 discussion on this show about whether or not A.J. Brown was going to have a better career than Corey Davis. When you are an elite-level player, it doesn't take long. So I'm not worried about Sunday. Like, if I'm Arizona, I would say, oh, thank goodness it's their first game together and not their, 7th game together. I think it will get better, but worried about it for Sunday, I'm going to vote no. Let's go to your phones. 615-737-1025. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael is going to kick us off on Julio Jones. Thank you for calling the show. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Sure. My whole thing about the Julio, quote-unquote, attitude problem is with the past, 5 years with the Falcons, ever since Super Bowl 51, really, the whole franchise has just been in the dumpster. They have just absolutely sucked ever since Super Bowl 51. And I think that, obviously, it's easy to say, winning cures all, but it's true because winning really does help a lot of those types of situations with, attitude problems and stuff like that. Granted, if they were winning, they probably wouldn't have traded Julio to us. But I think this whole thing about his...
So, Michael, you're about the 5,000th, and I do appreciate your call. You're like the 5,000th person who is called in to say, well, Atlanta sucked. So, I mean, why was Julio supposed to have a good attitude when Atlanta sucks?
The Titans could suck.
Your good players are supposed to be able to keep you from sucking. Like, their attitude is supposed to be what you can rely on. Guess what? When Mike Vrabel made the change in October of 2019, which wasn't very long ago, 23 months ago, Mike Vrabel made the change to Ryan Tannehill. And when he made that change, Mike Vrabel was able to hold it together because the core of the team, Byard, Henry, Logan Ryan, Jarrell Casey, Ryan Tannehill, all had the right attitudes. That day that they made the change, that day, I forget what had happened. Something had gone down between Paul Kaharski and Logan Ryan. I don't remember what it was exactly. And I was in the locker room, and I watched Wesley Woodyard, a captain on that team, get in Paul Kaharski's face and say, you are not going to break this team up. I mean, Woodyard was ready. I don't think Woodyard was going to fight. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Darren Bates had to hold him back. And, I mean, I'm not saying Paul's doing his job. But that was, captain team saying, you're not going to come between this team. Because that's how you keep your team together when things aren't good. Is everybody does their job. Everybody continues to toe the rope in the same direction. So as far as a character issue with Julio, the idea, well, the Falcons suck, so yeah, he quit on them. That's bad. That's bad. I just want people to know that. I'm not saying it, that's bad.
And I can see where they're coming from. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of frustration there, but you have to look at the root of the problem, because if the Titans start the season, knock on wood, 2-5, you think Julio's going to be all hunky-dory about it? Probably not, because what we've seen from the past.
Here's my thing about Julio, and maybe this is why the contract thing is actually a good thing. I could be wrong. Julio strikes me as one of those guys like Darrelle Revis. Darrelle Revis he'll play his butt off for you. He doesn't care about winning. He doesn't care about the team's record. Darrelle Revis cares about getting money. You got to pay him. But once you pay him, the guy's going to be a dog. Jamal Adams. I don't think Jamal Adams cares how good his team is. But you got to pay him. And those guys will play their butts off. But you got to pay them. I think Julio's that way. I don't think Julio cares about winning and losing, and I don't really. I think he's one of those guys.
Does. On a spectrum, I don't think he's one way far or another. I think he cares about wins, and I also think he cares about getting paid.
I'm sorry. You run off the field on a play that's designed for you, you don't get the benefit of the doubt with me whether or not you care about your team. I think he cares about getting his money, and if you give him his money and you give him his respect, he'll go out there and he'll play for you. And he felt disrespected in Atlanta.
But they
and
paid
that's
him.
what led to all of that. Right. And remember, that was Arthur Blank's biggest bone of contention was we made you the highest paid receiver in the league, and you still felt disrespected by it. So that's what I think about Julio. And I've never met the guy. So I can't tell you, well, my experiences with Julio are, but I just know there are certain players in the league. If you pay them and you kiss their butt, they'll go out there and play for you. But the second that you do something that makes them feel disrespected or not paid, they'll clamp up on you. And I don't really love investing in guys like that. I like investing in guys like Tannehill who are willing to take a pay cut and sit on the bench and keep their mouth shut, and then when the opportunity is theirs, go take advantage of it. I prefer that. I prefer Henry. 2 years he sat behind DeMarco Murray. Nick Saban said on this show, Derek was calling him, and he was telling Derek, wait your turn. Be patient. Just wait your turn. We never heard Derek complain once in 2 years. The only controversial story surrounding Derrick Henry in 5 years has been when Derrick Henry missed OTAs to go finish up classes at Alabama, and Mike Mularkey got mad about it. That's it. I like winning like that. I'm not saying he can't win with Julio. The Patriots got Darrelle Revis and won a Super Bowl. So you can win with that guy. But you got to know that that's what drives that guy. And everybody that says, well, the Falcons, they stink. Screw the Falcons. I'm telling you, it doesn't feel that way to me. Just doesn't feel that way to me. 615-737-1025. What do we have in the text line?
One texter texts in. I am interested to hear your response to this. This texter says, I know how much Jared loves the word culture concerning the locker room. How does Jared think Julio fits into Vrabel's culture?
That's a really good question. And I think it's one of those things where let's see what happens when he gets 3 targets and gets 1 catch in a game that they win barely. Mm-hmm. Then will we know. Rashad Matthews. I always go back to this one where Rashad Matthews got hurt and lost his starting spot. And from what I could infer. From what I could infer, Rashad Matthews wanted his starting spot back. Matt LaFleur said something like, hey, everything's got to be earned around here. Just like the basic generic thesis, whatever. And Matthews got offended, didn't like it. So he went to Robinson and he went to Vrabel, and they were basically telling Matthews, dude, just calm down. You'll get your spot back. You'll earn it back. It'll be fine. You'll be in the lineup. You'll get the ball. Just calm down. Which any reasonable person could have interpreted as, look, dude, we just say things like that because that's the brand we're trying to set, but in reality, like, you're going to be back in there. And Matthews still didn't want to hear it. He wanted to be starting right away. And they had to cut him. They didn't have anybody that could come in and play wide receiver after that, but they had to. Because that kind of thing of I want it my way or I'm out is not going to fly with Vrabel and Robinson. They've got more invested in this guy than they did Rashard Matthews. So I don't know. But again, as far as culture is concerned, remember the Saban talks. Dimitroff to Robinson, Robinson to Vrabel, Vrabel to Saban, Saban to Julio, back to Saban to Vrabel, and that's how I think this all went down. And I think your question about how will Julio fit in Mike Vrabel's culture, that's what I think he needed to know from Nick Saban. 615-737-1025. Headlines with Caroline is next, but first she wants to tell you about BetUS.
I've got a message for all the sports bettors out there, and I want to tell you about my favorite sports book, and that is BetUS. Football is back. We're just about 24 hours away from the beginning of the NFL season, so it's time for you to get in on the betting action. BetUS has been America's favorite sports book for over 25 years, and that's exactly why I endorse BetUS. 25 years is a very long time, and they've established themselves as with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you are going to get paid. That's exactly what you get from BetUS. Plus, they offer live bets, MMA, golf, horses, esports, whatever you want to bet on. They've got it. So call them today. They'll walk you through setting up an account. It's super easy. I have done it. Their number is 1-800-79-BET-US. That is 1-800-79-BET-US. And they will walk you through setting up an account. Nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. So you can join now. Mention GAME, G-A-M-E, and you can get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody in the industry beats that. Up to 200% in bonuses. I bet at BetUS, so should you. Go to BetUS.com, join today, put in promo code GAME, up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. Can't ask for much more at the beginning of the NFL season. So go to BetUS.com and set up your BetUS account today.
Stillman and Company, ESPN 1025. The Game. A.J. Brown, a non-practice today with a knee injury for the Titans. Everybody else, David Long Jr. and Chris Jackson, questionable with hamstrings or limited with hamstrings. I'm guessing A.J. is going to be fine. Probably no reason to worry about A.J. for this week, but maybe some reason to worry for A.J. down the road. That being said, it's time now for Headlines with Caroline, which is presented, I should say, who it's presented by in just a second. But time for Headlines with Caroline.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk. ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Headlines with Caroline. I have the sponsor somewhere. I'm sorry, everybody. This is all my fault. Headlines with Caroline.
It is presented by Fiero Tequila, the spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave.
All right. Give us our headlines.
I've got some NFL roster updates for you today. The Saints have released their running back Latavius Murray. They have some cap issues going on, similar to the Titans. They asked Latavius Murray to take a pay cut, and he refused. So he's due to make around a little bit over $3 million in salary and bonuses this season. In his 2 seasons with the Saints, he is about 1,300 rushing yards, 411 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns, coming off his best season in 2020. And the Saints have about $5 million in cap space now for 2021.
Yeah, I think anybody who is asked to take a pay cut doesn't and gets released, they're willing to do that. You know, like that is... there's nobody that I'll look at and say, you're selfish for not taking a pay cut for the team. I won't do that. You agreed to play for a certain amount. They want you to take less. You say no. Okay. Now, I don't know what that means for your future, but I think anybody should be allowed to say no as far as taking a pay cut and not having you get upset at them.
And I'm sure he will get picked up somewhere. I'm sure.
Maybe not for $3 million.
Maybe not for $3 million. But some more running back news. The Baltimore Ravens have signed 3-time Pro Bowler Le'Veon Bell to their practice squad on Tuesday. So J.K. Dobbins, their starting running back, out with an ACL tear. Justice Hill, the third stringer, is out with an Achilles injury. So their depth at running back is running a little bit shallow. But the Ravens said they will sign him to the 53-man roster whenever Le'Veon Bell is ready. So I'm assuming that's like today, probably.
Does anybody care about Le'Veon Bell anymore?
Well, the fact that he was only signed to the Ravens practice squad after 2 of their running backs have gone down with an injury, I'm going to say probably not.
I mean, think about this. Le'Veon Bell was the baddest dude at running back in the NFL, maybe a top 3 player in the game a handful of years ago. And he, cried his way out of Pittsburgh, and he got cut from the Jets, and he spent 1 year with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs couldn't stand him, and he couldn't stand the Chiefs, and now he's on the Ravens practice squad. Like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, you all know me. I'm a pro-marijuana guy. I think it should be legal in all 50 states, and to me, if you smoke pot, you're not a bad guy. You do you.
You're fine.
But how Le'Veon Bell could have lost all the money that he lost over smoking pot, or the bad advice that he got not to play on that $14 million franchise tag. I mean, the name Le'Veon Bell, but I don't think the player is worth all that talking more. Like, I think the Ravens lose a lot. Now, see, I like Gus Edwards, who was their backup, for the last couple of years, and is now going to be their starter. I've always liked Gus Edwards. I don't think he's J.K. Dobbins, but I like Gus Edwards. But I don't think this is a big deal. And I wouldn't do this to Lamar. I would not put Le'Veon Bell on that team. What's that?
The Texans have signed wide receiver Danny Amendola to a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. So he's 35 years old, played last season with the Lions, 46 catches for 602 yards, no touchdowns. Not necessarily a career year for Danny Amendola in Detroit, but he actually grew up in Houston. So he's coming back home.
If Nick Caserio was running a hockey, baseball, or basketball team, I would understand some of these moves. Because these are all guys that you can flip at a trade deadline, and you can get something in return and build for the future.
It's a recognizable name.
Well, that doesn't really matter. But as far as adding an Amendola in, like, again, let's say this were hockey. You pay Amendola $2 million. He comes in, he's around for 7 weeks, catches some balls, and then you flip him at the trade deadline, and you get a second-round pick in return to some team that lost a guy to an injury, or some team that didn't think they were contenders, and now they are, and they need a slot guy, and he knows the offense. Okay, there you go. The problem is in the NFL, you don't see a ton of that. Mm-hmm. So you don't sign guys to then get assets. Teams will pay money for draft picks. But that's not really what that does. If I was Caserio, and I don't know what their depth chart at wide receiver looks like, but they're going to be so bad anyways, it doesn't matter. I probably would have kept the rollover cash into future years. Kept the cap space, let it roll over to the next year, and go from there. I will say this about Caserio and the Texans. I have a lot of sympathy for them right now because I think the league is doing them dirty by not putting Deshaun Watson on the commissioner's exempt list.
Why?
Because Deshaun Watson should be on the commissioner's exempt list. They should not be paying Deshaun Watson. Yeah. And they should not have to worry every week about deactivating Deshaun Watson. And even
though they've already come out and said he will be a healthy scratch every single week. That's already their plan.
But they shouldn't be put in that position by the league. The league should put Deshaun Watson on the commissioner's exempt list. And why they haven't done it, I don't know. What's next?
So a little bit of Vols news for the Tennessee Pitt game, which has now been dubbed the Johnny Majors Bowl. Jackie Sherrill, who's a former member of the Pitt football coaching staff under Johnny Majors, will serve as the honorary captain for the Tennessee game. So he and Johnny Majors coached together for 5 years at Iowa State, and then both went to Pitt together, coached together at Pitt, and he took over as head coach whenever Johnny Majors left Pitt to go to Tennessee. So he returned to Pitt as head coach in 1977, won 11 games in each of his final 3 seasons at Pitt, and then left for Texas A&M for the head coaching job. So kind of a cool little matchup for Pitt and Tennessee this weekend.
No Philip Fulmer being the honorary captain for the Johnny Majors game?
I don't believe so.
I mean, I just felt like that's Fulmer and Majors, they were,
Were they?
No.
Yeah,
no.
I don't think that they were.
When Majors refers to you as Judas Brutus, I feel like that probably tells you all you need to know there. Those are headlines with Caroline.
Presented by Fiero Tequila. The spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave.
There you go. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next. I hate when sports. See, I've got this. People always say you got to keep politics out of sports. How about they got to keep sports out of politics? How about you keep politics out of sports? But there is something that I'm not sure I completely agree with. But I'm not going to get mad about it like everybody else. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. College football week 2. Oh, my goodness, week 1. It was nice. You see the TV ratings are like through the roof again for college football.
Way up.
And the crowds were packed and having a great time. And it feels like college football is back to normal. It's not all conference games like it was last year. You don't have some schools playing in the spring and some playing in the fall. And you don't have games. And it's great. But there's been a fallout from week 1 of college football that's starting to bother me a lot, which is I don't mind when people will text this show all the time, whether you're talking about race relations in America and how that intersects with sports, whether you're talking about people and whether or not they should get vaccinated, taking a knee during the national anthem, and somebody will text into the show and they will say, well, I tuned into this show because I want to hear about sports. Sports. That's why I listen to this show. I want to hear about sports. And we're a sports show, like for sure. Well, when I turn on cable news, I don't really want to hear about sports. I've long believed, leave sports out of this. But they're not going to do this. I've long said I don't think vaccines are a political topic. If you're somebody that doesn't want to hear about politics, the vaccine to me is not a political topic. Donald Trump got the vaccine. He wants you to get it. Joe Biden got the vaccine. He wants you to get it. That's the two, ends of the spectrum here. And they both got it, and they both support you getting it. That's not a political topic. Like, to me, that's not politics. But people make it to be politics. And I'm very pro-vaccine. I liked seeing the crowds packed at college football. And all of a sudden, CNN and Dr. Fauci decided that they wanted to give their 2 cents about college football packed stadiums. This was on CNN, I believe, on Monday. Here's what Dr. Anthony Fauci said.
Big crowds in stadiums, not clear who was required to be vaccinated. Recommendations for masks, but as you can see in these pictures, folks just weren't doing it. I mean, is this kind of behavior going to get us on the other side of this? Or if we keep doing this, are we going to be kind of stuck in outbreak mode?
Well, we could be stuck in outbreak mode, and that's why I think what you're going to be seeing, in addition to the fact that people are getting voluntarily vaccinated now on a more and more basis, as you said, we've been a couple of days, even over 1 million per day. Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot more local mandates, Jim. I think they're going to be organizations, they're going to be universities, they're going to be colleges, they're going to be sports events, travel events, where the rule is going to be if you want to participate, you get vaccinated. If not, sorry, you're not going to be able to do it. And I think when we get more and more of that, I think we're going to start seeing a great diminution in the number of cases.
Listen, I get folks want to go back to normal life. They want to go to games, right? I want to go to games. But when you look at crowds like that, you approve of that? Or is that just not smart?
No, I don't think it's smart. I think when you're dealing particularly outdoors is always better than indoors. But even when you have such a congregate setting of people close together, first you should be vaccinated. And when you do have congregate settings, particularly indoors, you should be wearing a mask.
Oh, people were mad. People were mad about that. And that's really dominated topics of discussion for the last 2 days. Mm-hmm. You'll see people on certain channels that are saying, see, COVID is over. College football is showing you that COVID is over. And then you'll see there where they ask Dr. Fauci on CNN, they ask him about the packed stadiums. He pretty much ignores it, right? And talks about you're going to see more vaccine mandates for really everything in general, and we need to get as many people
outside
vaccinated.
Is better.
Right. And then the host, basically pins him down and is like, do you approve of going to the games? Do you? And so now he says, look, I don't think it's smart. If you're going to do it, be vaccinated, wear a mask. And then everybody else, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci. And I'm sitting here looking at this, Caroline, and I'm like, dude, we don't need to use college football like this. We don't need CNN to use college football to tell people that COVID is never going away because we packed the stands. And we don't need Fox News to sit there and tell people that COVID's over because people can pack a Wisconsin game. You know me. I'm very pro-vaccine. Mm-hmm. I would say I'm very worried of COVID. I accept the realities of it, and I know they exist, And I know that people can get it, and it breaks my heart when I read one of those articles, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or Politico or whatever. When I read an article and it talks about the fact that there are people that get admitted to the hospital that are about to die that then ask doctors, can I get the vaccine now? And it's like, no, it's too late. And that breaks my heart every time. My best friend is a doctor in Nashville who sees COVID patients on a daily basis. When he tells me stories, it breaks my heart. But why do we have to look at college football as like a political prop for cable news to get people all riled up or worked up about? You know me, I'm pro-vaccine, I'm pro, doing things the right way, but I don't have a problem with the stadiums being full. I don't have a problem with people being vaccinated, like myself, going to the Titans game on Sunday. And I don't have a problem with people who are not vaccinated going to the game, although you know me, I think everybody should get it. And I think you're doing yourself a lot of disservice if you don't get it. But if you choose to not get it and go to the game, then you go to the game, and if you get it, and then you have to suffer the consequences. But everybody now, it's like they're turning college football and the stadiums and what people want to do, they're turning this into a political tool. But it's not, notice this, it's not the coaches that are turning it into a political tool or the schools that are turning it into a political tool. I mean, at Wisconsin, in order to be a student there, you have to be vaccinated, I believe. 90% are fully vaccinated at the University of Wisconsin.
Vanderbilt, you have to be vaccinated.
You have to be vaccinated. And some of these stadiums are packed, and you have to be vaccinated or have a negative PCR test in order to go to the game. But Wisconsin is not trying to tell you that they're done with COVID because they packed the stadium. But they're also not telling you that you shouldn't be able to decide how to live your life. But it's all the political talk that comes into this that is really starting to upset me. I mean, even Dr. Fauci, and people are going to have their opinions on him no matter what, and I feel bad for him because for 50 or 60 years, the guy has stayed out of the spotlight. So you think all of a sudden he waited 50 years and said, oh, now's my chance? Or do you think he always wanted to stay out of the spotlight? I'm going to guess he probably always wanted to stay out of the spotlight.
Well, I had no idea who he was before March of 2020.
No. People forget George H.W. Bush during the AIDS epidemic said that, oh, this is the guy that we trust the most. That was 40 years ago. So if you want credit, you'll be like Jerry Krause and try to get more credit. But what's happened now is, he's kind of been the face of, talking about COVID one way or another, and half the people love the man, half the people hate the man. I feel bad for him. He doesn't want that. And you go back to that CNN clip. He's not trying to plant a flag down and say, shame on you, Wisconsin. Shame on you, Minnesota. Shame on you, Tennessee. Shame on you, UCLA. He wasn't doing that. But that's what it's going to turn into here. And I hate it. And I just look at it, and I will say this to everybody that asks us in sports, hey, can you keep politics out of sports? Can I just ask you, cable news, can you keep us out of you? Because that's what they're doing here. Again, I'm going to the Titans game on Sunday. I am completely vaccinated, and I think everybody should get it, and I will never stop saying that. So if someone's going to text into the text line and say, hey, you don't, well, I'm not going to stop saying it. So just turn the channel because it's not going to happen. But I'm going to the game Sunday. And I feel okay about going to the game Sunday. And I feel okay that they had packed stadiums. And I hate it that there could be somebody who's not vaccinated that gets this Delta variant that's really, really bad and something bad could happen. Breaks my heart. But I can't do what I call the political dividers, which is what cable news and social media is. I can't do that going at what I feel like is going after college football because they're trying to bring college football into their bullcrap, and that bothers me. They're trying to bring football into it, and I don't think that's fair to football, and I don't think that's fair to us. And honestly, I think it's wrong. I think it's truly wrong, and it really bothers me.
Well, what you said at the very beginning was these political news channels using it to get everyone riled up. Because that's exactly what they want to do. They want to be in the conversation. They want to be directing the conversation. College football is what, in my world, everyone's talking about. It's what's going on right now. It's week 1. It's packed stadiums for the first time in 2 years. It's jump around for the first time in 2 years.
Sure.
It's what everyone is talking about. So, of course, that's what they're doing to get everyone riled up. But I think that we have been in this thing for long enough that people can make the responsible decisions for themselves. If you don't feel comfortable going to a college football game, then don't. That's fine.
So
you don't have to.
So yes and no. I mean, I agree with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think we see some instances with how kids are treated that maybe people can't make the right decisions for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That is, part of it. But I go back to this sense of, like, cable news and social media echo chambers are not information. They're affirmation. That's why you listen to politicians talk about the economy. Politicians don't know anything about the economy. Economists know about the economy. But nobody listens to economists. They're boring. So it's like, I don't listen to that. You know what news channel I think gives you the most information on TV? CNBC. Like that, because it's all about the money. But what happens is these channels have become they're so about affirmation, not information. These personalities that you follow on Twitter and the loudest on social media, it's affirmation. I said to somebody the other day, there's a study about vaccines that can tell you whatever you want to know. I know this. Vanderbilt Health put out the other day, they got 17 people on ventilators, 17 are unvaccinated, 0 are vaccinated. I know that. I trust that. You may not trust it. You may read some, bullcrap story or something on Fox News and believe it. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong, whatever. But I hate that they're using like sports and college football and rooting for our teams and celebrating our teams. That's supposed to be above that. That's supposed to be like, if you want to go to your home and watch Fox News and get mad all day or whatever, or if you want to go and watch MSNBC and get offended all day, that's fine. But keep it away from the Titans. Keep it away from, and sports, it's great. Because in sports, people do care about affirmation, like on the radio, but they don't really, they're not going to sit there and lose 43-13 and then say, our coach is the best, our team is the best, and that's the good thing about sports. Is that, it is, we'll know on Sunday. Who's better, the Titans or the Cardinals? We'll know on Sunday. And that's what bothers me, is that the affirmation, dissemination of information has become so wildly at your fingertips. And it is so polarizing that they love doing it across all these channels. And I don't mind it on certain things. I don't mind, okay, yeah, these people over here are going to be mad about the southern border, and these people over here are going to be mad at you for not wearing a mask at the grocery store. Okay. But can we keep college football out of it? That's all I ask. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And like I said, I'm going to the Titans game on Sunday, and we're going to the Titans game. I'm going to the Titans game Sunday, and I'm pro-vaccine. 615-737-1025. Are we worried that local politicians are going to stick themselves back into football this year, or do we think that's over? We'll discuss and get your reaction. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Let me tell all the fine folks out there about something I'll have to tell you later, because apparently I no longer have that. Oh, hold on, never mind. Let me tell all the fine folks out there, don't miss the 2021 Middle Tennessee Highland Games and Celtic Festival, Saturday, September 11th at Percy Warner Park. A fun-filled day of Celtic games, children's activities, Celtic music, food, Scottish and Irish dancers, local and regional vendors, and much more. Tickets on sale now. Visit midtngames.com for more details. And let's go ahead and give away a pair of tickets. Who cares? Be caller 5 right now, and you'll win a pair of tickets to the Highland Games and Celtic Festival at Percy Warner Park this Saturday. Again, fun-filled day with Celtic games, Scottish and Irish dancers, Celtic music, kids' activities, food, and so much more. Good luck to that. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game.
the value of a hostile, packed home stadium in this league, and what do you anticipate this year in that regard?
I think that's certainly, if you can get out and, you could get ahead in the ball game and you're forcing them to use the silent cadence, and react off the football and not go off of a cadence. Those are all, or communication. That's something that's, difficult for us, when we're on the road and it's loud. So that would be helpful for a team that doesn't huddle much this week. As far as my expectations, I expect there to be plenty of fans. It looks like people are dying to get back. This game and this sport, people, you just kind of noticed come, the end of August, beginning of September, people were just dying to watch football, no matter who was playing. And the people that come out, the students at college that didn't have that experience, hopefully the same thing will happen, with us, that the people will be in the parking lots, they'll be tailgating, and they'll be enjoying, everything that they, knew before we didn't have fans at games.
That was Mike Vrabel today. Fans back at full capacity Nissan Stadium on Sunday, and I echo Vrabel's sentiment about we're doing the pregame show at Rock Bottom Brewery Sunday, and I'm walking across the bridge like I always have, and I'm going right into the stadium, and I'm going right back to my seats that I did not sit at last year, and I'm going to go to the Titans game on Sunday. And I will say something that, COVID has just been going on for so long. But it does feel like I have been, Predators in the playoffs, packed house. Yeah, you had to wear your mask, but it's probably down around my chin for a lot of the game, and nobody said anything to me. Whereas, during the regular season,
they had signs that said, wear your mask.
If your mask slipped below your nose during the games, there was someone coming up to you going, sir, sir, sir. That was gone in the playoffs. I went to a packed Luke Bryan concert, just packed. Had a good time.
Good.
Going to the Titans game Sunday.
I will be there too.
I do wonder one thing, though, because all the politicians are just complete grandstanders. That's all they want to do is get up on and, get up there and, spout their point that makes their people feel good. Are we worried that the politicians are going to get too into this season and start rolling it back? Are you worried at any point that they'll come down and say, Mayor Cooper last year, everyone got really mad at Mayor Cooper, and look, his COVID decisions, you say whatever you want about that. I don't care. Mayor Cooper came on this show when he was Metro Council member at large, and we got in a shouting match about the soccer stadium. So I think, whatever you want to say about that. Do you think, though, that politicians this year will start rolling stuff back on sports or putting pressure on teams to not be at full capacity? Because I'll say this, again, I'm a guy who takes COVID pretty seriously. I'm pro-vaccine, but I say let them go. And if you want to go, to your point, Caroline, if you want to go and if you get sick and if you die, I'm sorry, but that was the choice you made. You chose not to do that. And if you get vaccinated and you go to the game and you want it, fine. Yes, do it. And I get worried that they're going to try to bring it back a little bit this year.
Maybe this is just my wishful thinking, and this is me hoping to speak it into existence. But I don't think that they will, because I
hope you're so right.
I think that a big part of it last year was that we just didn't know anything about COVID. We knew that it could spread, and we knew that it was airborne, but we didn't know exactly who would affect more than others. We didn't know if it was touch. Everyone at one point was wiping down the groceries that they got at a grocery store because they didn't know if they could get it that way. So I think that there were just so many question marks surrounding COVID last year and exactly what it was, how it affected people, how it could spread. So big events like sporting events, like concerts, seemed like they were pretty much impossible because they seemed like quote-unquote super spreader events. I think this year, I know that we're concerned about the Delta variant. I know that cases are rising in certain areas, but I think that we know enough about the virus. I think that people themselves feel comfortable enough if they so choose to go to concerts, to go to games. So I don't think that they will.
I think it's all political.
I really hope I'm right.
I think it's all political at this point.
I think so too.
If you roll something back, it's political. If you say, our case numbers are too high in whatever county, and we can only operate at 50% capacity, that's political. From where we are now, I think it's a political thing. If you are somebody who, one of these people that's like gets mad about a vaccine or PCR test mandate at the stadiums, that's a political thing. Like the people that get mad that LSU requires a vaccine or a negative PCR test within 72 hours, those people are just mad because it's a political reason that they're mad. Or those people that will yell about it like the politicians, that's all political stuff.
I'd be mad if it clogs up the line at Nissan Stadium.
What, of people trying to like show their vaccine cards or whatever?
Kind of kidding there, but yes.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. The Predators, you had to sign like this, that you had to check in last year and whatever. And then there was a problem for me, even when they were pretty much packing the stadium there at the end. Wasn't really much of a problem for me. Trying to get into the stadium.
Click a box, say, I haven't had these symptoms in the past whatever hours.
Right, I don't have a problem with that. And if you do a vaccine mandate, like, I don't have a problem with that. But, I mean, I feel like anything that anybody does, it's going to be totally political. So if, like, your governor or your mayor or your signs something that says, the stadium cannot force what? All right, that's political. Like, if it's like the stadium cannot force you to wear a mask, okay, that's political. And if you're on the other side of it, like, we need to reduce the capacity size and we need to have social distancing, that's political.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about last segment, too, was packing stadiums has become political on both sides of the spectrum.
Right.
The whole thing has become political.
It shouldn't, though.
No. It should be about protecting people and making sure that people are safe and also getting back to normal life and making sure that things run as they used to.
Yes.
Pre-2020.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
And I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with that. As somebody who goes to games, I'm fine with it. 615-737-1025. Jason Fitz, ESPN, will join us coming up next. We'll get Fitz's thoughts on week one of the college football season and how important was week one for the playoff. I'm not sold it was all that important. We'll get Fitz on that coming up next. NFL Week 1 is here. My official sportsbook app, the FanDuel Sportsbook app, is where you've got to be. The fridge is stocked, the recliner is ready, and now all you got to do is log into the FanDuel Sportsbook app and claim your risk-free bet. That's right. FanDuel Sportsbook is giving all customers, not just new customers, all customers a risk-free bet just in time for Week 1 of the NFL season. This is where you go with the parlay. Like, this is where you go with little to get to hit big. That's right. Do that. FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook app. It's easy to use. You got fast payouts. Use FanDuel Sportsbook on any Week 1 game. Bet the money line or take the over. Throw some action on a prop bet or, like I said, same game parlay bets. There's so many ways to play. If you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, use the promo code JGM to get yourself started. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code JGM. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Week 1 of the college football season is in the books. Week 2, get your morning kicked off with, I forget the title of the show.
Southeastern Carolines.
Southeastern Carolines. SEC.
There it is. There it is. We're taking the conference out of the SEC.
Southeastern Carolines every morning, 10 a.m.?
10 a.m.?
10 a.m. So forget about College Game Day and all that other stuff. Just watch Caroline on TV. It's you can just find it YouTube where all of our digital stuff.
YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. I'll tweet out the link every morning, and I'm live from 312 Pizza Company.
Are you going to get on Twitter and beg people to retweet the link so that more people will watch, or will you just tweet it out?
I feel like I'm above that, so probably not.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to check.
Yeah, thank you for asking, though.
Check
yeah.
So I've got a hot take after week 1 of college football, and it is I'm not sure the ACC should make the college football playoff. Like, I'm just going to be real. Like, I'm not sure the ACC should be invited. Clemson couldn't do much offensively. I get it. Georgia's got a nice defense. And I watched that game. I watched Florida State. Now, Florida State, I actually thought was kind of impressive for what I expected Florida State to be. But the ACC was awful. North Carolina lost, and then obviously Louisville got embarrassed on Monday night. Jason Fitz joins us now, ESPN Radio and the host of College Football Live on ESPN, presented by Blood Assurance. Give blood, give local, save lives. Fitzy, I'm ready to punt the ACC from the college football playoff this year. Overreaction or truth?
Truth. Look, and this is no discredit to Clemson. There just isn't a runway left. It's not the Clemson loss to Georgia that's going to keep them out in my mind. It's that they now lack the ability to get a signature win. Really, the only hope that the ACC is going to have is that Virginia Tech turns out to run away with something, because you're right, North Carolina was the media darling coming in at number 10, and they were obviously overrated. Kudos to Virginia Tech. Miami got just embarrassed at the hands of Alabama, and so that takes any momentum they have away. So if you were Clemson, you were looking at it saying, hey, even if we lose this game, at least we'll have the ACC championship game to get a big win. I'm not sure that they even have that runway left. So right now, Clemson will find themselves, in my mind, if they win out, they will be behind so many one-loss teams that the only way Clemson has a shot at the college football playoff, to me, is if somebody falls apart and we're looking at 2-loss teams, like a 1-loss Georgia, a 1-loss A&M, a 1-loss Alabama. Any of those schools will have a better signature win than anything Clemson can offer for the rest of the year. So two SEC teams feels like it's pretty easy to come to a path with, and the ACC is going to be on the outside looking in.
So here's what I believe, though, and I hear you. I believe that the only team that the SEC could get in, other than their champion, the only team that they could get in is Georgia ahead of Clemson. So what I mean by that is, let's use Ole Miss as an example. Let's say Clemson runs the table and they're 13-1 or 12-1 or whatever after the ACC title game. Ole Miss wins every game this year. That means they beat A&M. They win every game except Alabama. And they go into at 11-1 because they can't play in the SEC championship game. I still think the committee will put that Clemson team in over that Ole Miss team. Now, if it's 11-1 Georgia, then I think we've got a different discussion. Georgia with the head-to-head over Clemson. But I agree with everything you're saying. But I still think because Clemson is Clemson and brands matter to the College Football Playoff Committee, I still think Clemson has a shot, even though I'm with you, I don't think they should.
Yeah, well, I think the only thing that I keep looking at is the way the committee sort of values everything, right? So the first thing that we know, like Mike Golick Jr. and I did jokingly a few years ago, the 10 Commandments of the College Football Playoff Committee. One is thou shalt not get blown out. So, a blowout loss could change some of this, right? That becomes an easy excuse. But over the last few years, the weirdness of the committee, to your point, is that they seem to give you credit for good losses above giving you credit for good wins. So Clemson will get credit for a good loss to Georgia, as dumb as that sounds. But the problem is resume does matter. So when you look up and down the board, using your example, or using the example of A&M, because I think when you come in with a lot of hype and a lot of eyeballs, you get more benefit of the doubt. If we find ourselves with Alabama and A&M, and the only loss that either of those has is to each other, and the other gets the SEC championship game, that's pretty easy for me to find a way that they're going to say, hey, look at all these other big wins that came. Like the ACC's biggest shot right now, and I think this is funny, that they have more ranked teams this week than they did last week, but 7 of the 14 teams in the conference lost, right? So the ACC's argument already is going to become about depth, and if that's the case, then their depth has to be better than the SEC's depth to get anything going. Their depth has to be better than the Big Ten's depth to get anything going. And I just don't know that that's going to happen.
Fitz, what did you make of Georgia on Saturday night? Do you think Georgia is a legitimate title contender now, or did that tell us more about Clemson?
I think Georgia's defense is spectacular. And by the way, DJ Uiagalelei was pressured on 36% of his dropbacks. They came in with a great game plan, and they took on a kid at quarterback that was a little more tentative than most of us expected. So I think Georgia's defense is amazing. Their offense, though, should have been better. And they left points on the field. They didn't execute particularly well. Now, obviously, we all know if you get Clemson's defensive coordinator, if you get Brent Venables an entire summer to game plan JT Daniels, he's going to win, and that was the presumption. But Georgia's offense is going to have to be able to score points. Like, we're talking about Georgia like they're the second coming, and they may be the number 2 team in the country, but there isn't a small gap. There's a moat between Alabama and Georgia after 1 week. So while I think Georgia has the opportunity to be really good, their offense has got to get better and got to get better quickly.
What do you think happens to Ed Orgeron at LSU?
He gone. And it's funny because Marcus Spears sort of not yelled at me. He made fun of me last year on one of the college football shows because I said, hey, next season, if LSU's not good, is Coach O's seat going to be hot? And Marcus laughed at me at the time. And Ryan Clark texted me afterwards. He's like, you've lost your mind. And the funny thing about it is my whole argument is that in the college football landscape, it becomes very easy to say the national championship they won was about Joe Brady and Joe Burrow, not about Ed Orgeron. And that's exactly what's going to happen. LSU fanatics, alumni, former players are all using their recruiting classes as evidence to why LSU is going to be better this year. My problem isn't that they lost at UCLA. That's going to happen, especially with all the life distractions they have. My problem is the defense was every bit what it was last year. Like, they took bad angles. They didn't hustle. They don't look fast. I mean, you've got guys that are supposed to be NFL caliber players that are out there that look lost on the field. And when that happens, you got to at some point at coaching. So I think Ed Orgeron at this point, the seat is going to be incredibly hot. It's easy to find 5 or 6 losses on that schedule. And if you're looking at a 5-loss LSU team, man, I just wouldn't be surprised, frankly, to see LSU reach out and say, hey, Joe Brady, would you rather be an offensive coordinator in the NFL or the head coach at LSU? And we're going to see if he can recapture that magic coming back to Baton Rouge.
See, I actually said that on Monday, Fitz. That's what I think is going to happen, is I think LSU is going to talk themselves in to it wasn't Coach O who won us a title. It was Joe Brady who won us a title, and then they're going to go out and try to hire Joe Brady to be the head coach. And they're going to talk themselves into it because they're going to say, if we don't hire Joe Brady today, if we don't fire Ed O and we don't hire Joe Brady today, then we are not going to be able to hire Joe Brady because he'll be a head coach in the NFL because he's such a good coach. And I think they're going to talk themselves into it, and I completely agree with you about what the future at LSU is. What did you think, Fitz, as far Vanderbilt loses by 20 to East Tennessee State? I didn't even watch the game. And I don't feel bad that I didn't watch the game. And I know you're doing all the stuff for ESPN. I'm guessing you didn't watch the game. But my take on it was I can't blame Clark Lee, and I'm not going to blame Derek Mason. I think this is a Vanderbilt needs to look in the mirror. What'd you think?
Yeah, well, and so the funny thing is, you're right. Harry Douglas and I do a college football show from 7 to 8 p.m. digital and 11 to 11:30 digital. So we were watching all the games. And the Vandy game was on Plus, so I actually pulled Plus up on my iPad. So I had all these big games on, and I looked down at the Vandy game, and I looked at Harry Douglas midway through the first half, and I said, you know what's stunning to me right now? It's not that Vandy's getting beat. The stunning part is that they're getting beat at the line of scrimmage, and that's just like to that school, you know, to be an SEC school and to lose the line of scrimmage to ETSU. I mean, what are we doing, right? And so I think that's just a real reaction. And you're not wrong. Like, I'm not going to put any of this on Clark Lee yet. I've talked to people around the Notre Dame program that really believe in him. But I think most people need to understand it takes a few years to get to the spot where you can be who you want to be in this type of program. It's going to take him some time. The biggest thing to me is what you said. Vandy needs to look in the mirror. But I'm not sure they really care enough to look in the mirror. And that's okay. Like, I don't know that if you're a Vandy student or Vandy alumni or you work at Vandy, it's okay if you just want to admit that, hey, like, we're just cool being in the SEC because we like the money and we like the platform and don't really care if our team's all that good. Because that's the sense that you get most of the time from Vandy. So, like, the hard part is that I think a lot of us watching Vanderbilt sports care more about Vanderbilt sports than the people in the building at Vandy do. And until they care, then there's nothing that's going to turn around. I just don't – if they don't care, it's never going to turn around, and they're okay with that.
Jason Fitz, our guest. The Vols take on Pittsburgh this week. Not impressive against Bowling Green, but a lot of that has to do with how bad Bowling Green is. What do you make about the Vols in week 2 against Pittsburgh and Josh Heupel, Joe Milton so far?
Yeah, I mean, the team's got to play tighter. We all know that. And, the funny thing is with Heupel, there's all the – I made this joke 1,000 times, but there's so much hype around Heupel right now that I think there's pretty sizable expectations. Pittsburgh's not a great team. Pittsburgh's an okay team, right? And so, if you're Tennessee, you got to look at it and say these are the sorts of games we should be winning if we want to be more competitive in the East overall. The problem for Tennessee football, and you know this, we've talked about this, the problem for Tennessee football isn't that they've been bad. It's that they become irrelevant. And the only way you become relevant is to win these sorts of games that are going to get a little more platform outside of the SEC. So I think there's actually a lot on the line for Tennessee in this to not just show up, but to show up, look good, and get a win.
Jason Fitz, ESPN Radio, joins us on the program, as always, presented by Blood Assurance. Give blood, give local, save lives. Appreciate you, Fitzy. We'll break down week 2 next week with you.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, when do I get an invite to come on and hang out on, SEC? It sounds like a fun Saturday morning show. It's okay. My feelings aren't hurt. It's good. It's good.
Fitz, you are always welcome.
Don't do that, Dave. Do not cater to him.
Fitz is always welcome. And Fitz, I heard you talk about the 10 Commandments of college football the other day. I heard earlier in this segment, I heard that there was a pretty cool visual to go along with that.
There was. I wonder who made that visual. I just can't. I can't.
A super cool
it escapes
girl.
Me.
I've heard good things about
man.
her.
Be nice if we had some visuals on this show. I'm just saying. Fitz,
you guys have a great week, and Caroline, just hit me up. I'm just saying, I'm around.
Appreciate
you, Fitz.
Jason Fitz joining us, ESPN Radio, once again, presented by Blood Assurance. Give blood, give local, save lives. I'm just saying.
We do have visuals on this show.
We're going over the Titans captains coming up next. Can we have a visual with them up there?
If I can get to it.
I mean,
you're going to have to give me a heads up. I'm not a miracle worker over here. I do what I can.
I'm just saying. Go to thegamenashville.com/deals to check out Nashville's best deals. Save cash with the purchase of a $10 gift card for Retro Snow for only $5. Nashville's original shaved ice truck, bringing back snowballs with creativity and pure cane sugar. Dreaming up new flavor combinations and adding fresh, delicious toppings is what makes us Retro Snow. Nashville's original shaved ice truck. Visit their first ever permanent location in the nations at 806 51st Avenue North. Friday from 4 to 7, Saturday and Sunday 2 to 7. Check out Retro Snow's truck schedule at retrosnow.com. Get your deals while they last now at thegamenashville.com/deals.
As far as your captains go, I mean, what are your expectations for them? I guess you've seen guys handle things differently, and I'm sure you feel like you got several guys in this locker room who could be captains. But as a head coach, what do you want your captains to do?
Well, I mean, I think they represent the team and who we want to be, and help carry that message, from me, the coaching staff, into the locker room. The players can, ask them if, some guys, may not want to come and ask me something, and I think the captains usually can, and, I try to, visit with them, but, there's no restrictions on leadership. There's, guys are going to be able to lead whether we name them a captain or they were voted on by their teammates as captains. That's critical to understand.
That was Mike Vrabel today talking about the players are voting on captaincy, and the Titans have released their captains. Have you seen who their captains are?
I have.
Okay. Ian, have you seen who the captains are?
I did see that, yes.
Okay, you guys are no fun then. I was going to see if you guys could guess them. Because today, when Vrabel was talking about who the captains were, I want to tell the team first. I was like, okay, Tannehill, Henry, Byard. I'm like, it's either going to be Jayon Brown or Simmons, and I think they'd rather have Simmons be a captain because, they view him as kind of like the long-term guy there. And then I was like, special teams, and I thought about, like, is there a special teams ace on the team? Wesley Woodyard's not there anymore. Darren Bates isn't there anymore. Like, it's probably just Brett Kern. Like, I just thought that. And I look down and I see Tannehill, Henry, Byard, Simmons, Kern. So that was so predictable who the Titans captains were going to be that it made me think about a story. I shouldn't say story. Maybe a little insight that the GM once gave me. And I asked the GM, I said, Floyd, who picked the team captains? Did they vote on them or did you pick them? And he looked at me. And like when somebody tells you something without telling you? He said, they voted, but I tallied the votes. That told me all I needed to know.
Okay, there you go.
That told me all I needed to know.
So it's a semi-democracy.
I mean, according to Floyd, and then it's like, you follow up. And then I think this was off the air when he told me that he would tally up the votes. I'm not even sure I followed up because I knew I was picking up what he was putting down. But I almost wanted to be like, so did you ever bump a captain or anything like that? And I guarantee you his answer would be, oh, no, the players every time pick with the players. Do you think Vrabel picked the captains? Or do you think the team actually voted on the most predictable 5 guys? Jayon Brown and A.J. Brown are the only 2 people that aren't captains that I could have seen being voted a captain, and they're not.
I did wonder if A.J. Brown was going to be a captain. And while I answer your question, why don't you take a quick look at the stream? I don't know, because, you said that you thought it would be Tannehill, Byard, Henry, Simmons, Brett Kern. So that's exactly who it is. So I
thought there was a chance Jayon Brown was going to be in there.
Yes.
That was the one that I really thought, okay, I could see, because he's a linebacker and he wears the green dot, and I could see Jayon Brown being in there.
But if you had the same kind of thought, like there's not really a guy in there that I'm like, wait, what? That guy? Really? So I don't know. I feel like if you're on the same page, then the players are probably on a similar page to Mike Vrabel as well.
So here's where I guess I have a little bit of a problem with it. Is Jeffrey Simmons one of the best 2 leaders on the defense?
See, that I think is one.
He, or do they want Jeffrey Simmons to be one of the best? They just made a movie about Jeffrey Simmons on YouTube last week.
Jeffrey Simmons and A.J. Brown.
So do they want Jeffrey Simmons to be a leader because they want Jeffrey Simmons? I don't know how.
Do we know that he's not?
I don't know how Ken Wisenhunt that he's not a leader.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know, I don't know if Ken Wisenhunt let the players pick. But his second year, he made Taylor Lewan a captain. And the day that Mike Mularkey took over as interim coach, he took the captaincy away from Lewan. And we all know that Wisenhunt, drafted Lewan, and that was his guy. Mm-hmm. And that was a big ego shot to Lewan. It took some stones for Mike Mularkey to take that captaincy away, which he needed to do. But it took some stones for him to do that. I think that Vrabel, that's who the Titans want to be captain. Is who are the captains. Ian, what do you think?
I see where you're going with this. And
It makes sense.
yeah. And honestly, though, to Caroline's point, there really is only Jayon Brown or Jeffrey Simmons as far as options on the defense, along with Kevin Byard. No?
So it's not our call, and we're not there every day, which is why if a curveball was thrown out there, it would probably tell you the players are picking it. Because if it was like Dennis Kelly last year is a captain, it'd be like, okay, that tells us that Dennis Kelly is a real leader. Or Anthony Ferkser this year. Guy went to Harvard, he's been around, whatever. Ferkser's a captain. It would tell us, okay, Ferkser's a real leader. I could see why the team would want Simmons in over Brown. And I would see why the players would vote Brown over Simmons. Brown has a bigger role on the defense as far as the communication aspect with everybody is concerned.
And he's a more seasoned vet.
He's a more seasoned vet, and he's done more in his career than Simmons. Like, Simmons has all the potential in the world, and he's a bad boy. Like, there's no doubt about it. But Jayon Brown has been a solid player for 4 years in the NFL. But if you're the Titans, Jayon's on a 1-year contract. Jeffrey Simmons, you expect to be the cornerstone of your defensive line for the next 8 years. You'd rather Simmons be the leader because he's going to be around for forever than Jayon. But I'm, again, maybe the players are thinking just like we're all thinking too.
Yeah, it makes
that's
sense.
why they do. But ever since Floyd said that time that he tallied the votes, I have always been a little skeptical about captain voting. So I just throwing that out there. Just throwing it out there. But again, not surprised. Tannehill, Henry, Byard, Simmons, Kern. Fine by me. Joe Rexrode joins us next. Jared versus Joe last week apparently was a very popular segment.
People loved it.
Joe Rexrode joins us next for Jared versus Joe. And remember that Caroline said that I got the best.
Don't get a big head.
Apparently, Joe Rexrode's daughter, Caroline Rexrode, wants to do a Rex rant about me.
She does.
Yeah, and I don't know what grade she's in. Like the 5th or 6th grade or something like that?
Yeah, she's younger.
So I told Joe, I said, look, you need to tell your daughter that she's about the 18th person named Caroline that's got a bone to pick with me. So you need to just go ahead and tell her to get in line behind all the other Carolines. Yes, behind all the other Carolines that have some kind of an issue with me. And trust me, it's a long list. 615-737-1025, Jared versus Joe. It's next. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. I am surprised that Joe Rexrode would come back to the Stillman and Company program after his beatdown last week in Jared versus Joe. I have to give him credit.
Narrow loss as the referee of this segment.
But he lost, and I'm surprised. But you know what? I expect it to be more Michael Irvin-like today from Joe Rexrode. So without further ado, apparently the people love this segment.
Oh, the people love it. The text line was on fire last week talking about how they wanted this every week.
So now it's
and
time
deliver.
For round 2 of Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
1025 The Game.
Okay, Joe, he's already mad. He's already mad that he lost week 1, but he is here for week 2. Joe Rexrode from The Athletic and Robbie and Rexrode. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Caroline is a wonderful co-host to humor you like this. That's very nice of her. Listen, if I lost and I'm the one bitter, why did you flip me off as I got on the Zoom? That's what I want to know. I mean, I'm just coming here as a friend. This is all in fun.
Well, I just, just for fun. It did make me feel better, though, if that makes you feel any better.
Good, I'm glad. It does.
So without further ado, Caroline, the floor is yours. What is the first topic?
Joe, I want you to start. Pitt, Tennessee is a must-watch for college football fans everywhere.
Okay, this sounds like a reaction to something I wrote. I really think it is. It's now look on another weekend. This game would be way down the list. It's not a great weekend, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think if you love, like schematic showdowns, I think Josh Heupel's offense is, it's a well-worn offense. He's not the only guy who's run it, but he runs it well. And what Tennessee does and what Pittsburgh does defensively under Pat Narduzzi and has done for a long time, I think it's a fascinating matchup. I think, Tennessee is going to be under siege. Joe Milton will be under siege, but he will also have a chance to make a lot of big plays. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say this. Here's a couple of things here. First of all, Joe Rexrode, this is the Joe Rexrode wet pants game of the week because Pat Narduzzi, this is a true story. First time I ever talked to Joe Rexrode, I was 23 years old. I was younger than you are now, Caroline. And Bob Valvano, the midday host at ESPN 680, where I used to work, was out. And Charlie Strong had left, and they were looking for a new coach, and Pat Narduzzi's name came up. So I said, I guess I'll get the Michigan State beat writer on. Little did I know that this man would be very much in my future. And also little did I know at the time that he was a diehard Michigan State fan. I didn't know that. But Pat Narduzzi was their defensive coordinator. And Joe came on the show. And I was convinced after talking to Joe that they were about to hire Nick Saban if they had hired Pat Narduzzi. That the defensive schemes from Pat Narduzzi were so good that they were hiring Nick Saban. Then after reading his Tennessee column last week, I was convinced that he thought Joe Milton was Michigan's biggest loss and Tennessee's biggest gain. So this is the Joe Rexrode game. I am going to watch who is it the big game this week that's on at noon, the big noon kickoff? Oregon, Ohio State.
You're
I'm gonna
rambling,
watch that game
man.
instead.
You're rambling.
I'm going to watch Oregon, Ohio State instead. That's what college football fans should watch.
All right.
By the way, if Nick Saban coached Pittsburgh, he'd go 7-5 too. But here we go.
Oh, no, he would.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Hey, if this were around the horn,
covered
Caroline
Nick
would hit the
Saban
mute
at
out
Michigan
right
State. He was a 500 coach at Michigan State. I covered him. I promise you, I saw it with my own eyes.
Maybe that says something more about you than it does him. You love Narduzzi, you love Joe Milton, you love Josh Heupel, but you don't love Nick Saban.
No, Nick Saban's the greatest coach ever, but we don't. Go ahead, Caroline.
All right, enough of this. We'll stick in the college football side of things. Joe, I'll let you start again.
Why?
Because I make the rules.
Okay.
Vanderbilt has set their football program up for success. It's just going to take time with Clark Lee.
This is Jared first?
This is you first, Joe.
This is me first, too? Okay. Well, okay. This is one of those things where I almost need to ask questions about the question. Look, I'll say this. The first game under Clark Lee was a debacle and a disaster. It doesn't really change how I feel about what he could do there. Vanderbilt is setting its football program up for some measure of success, which to me would be, can you be a consistent 6 or 7 win team? That should be realistic. And if you don't think that $300 million in facilities matters, it has been an embarrassment for decades. So you take away that embarrassment, like you have to bring recruits and like take them to different parts of campus and avoid other parts now. And you've had to do that forever. Vanderbilt should never have won an SEC football game in the past 20 years, but they did. So yes, Vanderbilt's investment, I believe, is setting them up for a certain level of success. But if you're saying success as in sniffing a champions or anything like that, I mean, I think that's far-fetched.
See, this is the thing about Joe. If Joe knows somebody or somebody like talks to Joe off the record, then he just immediately thinks that what they're doing is right. Vanderbilt is playing catch-up with 300.
Totally. That's totally accurate, Jared.
Vanderbilt is playing catch-up with $300 million. It'll cost $1 billion at least for them to catch up to anybody else in the SEC. At least $1 billion. And here's the other thing, Joe.
It's not about catching up.
I remember when David Williams came out with the plan for a new, for renovations to the stadium or a new stadium or something like that. It was only going to cost $100-something million, and nothing happened. So until I see a shovel in the ground, I could not care less. Optimistic about other than baseball right now with Vanderbilt. I mean, we're trying to talk about football here, but I mean, basketball's a mess. Women's basketball's a mess. I mean, it's a mess. And to sit there and say that they presented some program and you watch some virtual video about what $300 million could do when they really need $1 billion, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Jared, it's $300 million versus zero. It's not about catching up. It's about being reasonably competent. Zero, Jared, zero.
What's $300 million going to do?
You don't think that a new football, have you seen their football building compared to anything else in Power 5? It's not close. A new football building is being built. I mean, I guess I'll agree with you. Like, fine, show me the shovel. I mean, it'd be pretty incredible at this point for them to have 200 raised already and be raising the rest and then not do it. I mean, that's not what David Williams put out a plan of what they wanted to do. That's not what this is, Jared. And $300 million, they're not going to catch up, but it's zero versus $300 million. You don't think that's a huge difference? Come on.
I just don't think it makes that much of a difference for Vanderbilt. No. To say that's setting them up for success? No. Now, I think Clark's a good coach, and I'm not blaming him for Saturday, though I feel bad for him. But no. It's Vanderbilt we're talking about. Floyd said, and I stand by this, he would have kicked Vanderbilt out of the SEC if he was the commissioner, which is against the bylaws, but he would have still tried.
Okay. All right. Jared, I'll let you go first on this one.
Thank you.
Make your case. Kyler Murray, good or bad quarterback?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I just don't – he doesn't do it for me. Like, I know that everybody looks at Kyler Murray, his first-round pick, and he was Rookie of the Year, and he was the 39th best player according to the top 100 in the NFL. But with him and Kingsbury, I just don't see them as a threat in the NFL right now. And I think that a lot of it is his passing accuracy. I mean, he's got the weapons. He's got the offense that you would want to have that kind of guy play in. But, I mean, when's the last time you remember Kyler Murray winning a big game? Other than the Hail Mary he hit against Buffalo, I can't think in 2 years of a big game that I didn't watch, where the other team was the reason that they won. That having been said, I mean, it's year 3, and that's a big year for him. I do not think, if I had to bet right now, between whether or not Kyler Murray was going to get a second contract or be one of these guys like Jameis Winston or Mariota, or even like Derek Carr got a second contract but has fizzled out since then, I'll vote fizzle out. I think Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, those guys are over here. I think Kyler Murray is over here.
Joe, make your case. Kyler Murray, good or bad quarterback?
I mean, I mostly agree with what Jared said. Sadly, he's good enough to come in here and win Sunday, but I'd say he's an above average quarterback with a lot yet to prove.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm telling you, I don't know anybody who thinks that the Arizona Cardinals are a good team. Now, that's not to say that they can't, to Joe's point, that they can't come in here and beat the Titans. Because the Titans, we've seen. But I don't know anybody that would put their foot down for the Arizona Cardinals and say, that's a good team.
That's fair.
And I think a lot of that has to do with Kyler.
Next one. Jared, you go first. I let Joe go first twice. A.J. Brown's knee injury should be a concern for Titans fans.
Yes. 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 The guy had off-season knee surgery on both knees. He got hurt in almost every game. Vrabel was going out there every game, and as a fan, I was holding my hand together like, oh, Lord, please don't be hurt, AJ. And this happened like 6 times last season. AJ then has surgery on both knees, immediately has knee problems again in training camp, missed practice today with a knee. Should Titan fans be worried that AJ will play Sunday? No, he'll play. Should they be worried that he won't be an effective player this season? No, I don't think they should. I think he'll still be good. But after this year, if AJ keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to get top-of-the-market money. And I get worried about giving top-of-the-market money to chronic knee problems. Yes, Titan fans should be worried about AJ's knee. Yes, I'm worried about AJ's knee. And as Joe can attest to, I said all of this in front of AJ.
Joe?
I mean, Jared, this is a very Jared sounding panicky fan take, but honestly, I can't really disagree that much with it either in terms of long-term concern. The fact that he got those, cleaned out or whatever exactly he got done after the season, and now it's coming back again. I think that especially when you talk about that big deal, you've got to really watch carefully. He played at a high level, even though he was clearly in pain a lot last year. But at some point, that starts to erode on you. So, gosh, that's 2 in a row that I kind of agree with Jared. I feel dirty.
Oh, Joe, I'm disappointed.
This is what I would say. If AJ has another great season like this, would it be crazy? And I guess I'll ask this question to you, Joe. Would it be crazy if AJ has another really good season to think that he could ask for money to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL?
I mean, I think he's still a couple steps away from that, but crazier things have happened.
So, I don't think he would be the best receiver in the NFL, but I'm saying that, there's like a class of 8 guys that if you're one of the 8 and your contract is due, you become the highest paid guy in the league. And I do wonder about that with AJ. What's next?
Joe, I'll let you go first. Defend this take.
All right.
Tennessee football is what they did in the first quarter against Bowling Green, more so than they are in the later 3 quarters.
Well, I think you're saying the entire team.
I'm saying their potential this season is, we saw a glimpse of that in the first quarter against Bowling Green.
Yeah, I think, look, you go up, it's easy. You're rolling a bad team. And that's the problem with taking any real judgments out of there, is it's such a bad team. I mean, even the criticisms of Joe Milton, which I wrote, after the game, I mean, I think you could look at that game and think, Joe Milton knew no one was touching him that game. And so maybe he was trying to do too much. Like he knows Saturday that Narduzzi is going to send everything at him. So he has to play differently. But I think that they're more the first quarter team, because I think the tempo, that I was impressed operationally with the tempo. They have good receivers. They're supposed to get Jimmy Callaway this Saturday. I think the offensive line, if it stays healthy, is pretty good. I like their backs. I question their defense. I can't look at anything their defense did and care because Bowling Green is terrible, and there's SEC teams that are going to go up and down the field on them. But I do think offensively they are more the first quarter than the rest of the mucked up game.
What was Tennessee last year? Bad. What was Tennessee in quarters 2, 3, and 4 on Thursday night?
Not great.
Bad. What was Joe Milton at Michigan last year? Bad. What was Joe Milton in quarters 2, 3, and 4 last week? Bad. So you were bad last year, and you were bad for the majority of the game against a bad team on Thursday night. Chances are you're probably bad. So I'm not going to say that they're as unwatchable as they were in quarters 2, 3, and 4, specifically that second and third quarter. I mean, the second quarter was awful. They can't be that bad, or else they might lose to Vanderbilt. But to say that they're what they were in the first quarter, no, sir. There's no way they could be that good. They're playing a terrible team. Everything was scripted. And when you get into the SEC, those players are going to be better. Those coaches are going to be better. And they're going to sniff out your script. So I think it's really depressing how good Tennessee was with the script and how bad they were without the script. So I do think that they are not as good as they were in the first quarter.
You're bringing Chaney. You're bringing Chaney and Garantano and Pruitt. You're bringing them back into the fold somehow.
They were bad last year.
Last year doesn't mean anything.
They were bad last year. They lost all their players. They didn't get a lot of new ones. They were bad for 3 of the 4 quarters. To me, it's that simple. Tennessee's bad.
It's
and
math.
People know it.
It's Jared math.
They're bad. We talked about it. My dad, this is a true story, and then I'll let Caroline pick the winner of today's great segment. My dad actually said to me that he turned in the other day, he flipped onto the radio show, and he had watched the Tennessee game. And he said that, he heard us talk about Tennessee, and he's like, I bet everybody on the radio is going to be like, oh, it was a good first game for Heupel or whatever. And he just heard us talking about how bad and unwatchable they were. And he was like, I was sitting there thinking, I thought that's how I felt watching the game. They're bad. Because they are bad. But everybody knows they're bad, so it's not the end of the world.
The winner of Jared versus Joe this week, who gets to hold the hypothetical Jared versus Joe trophy for the week.
This is going to tell me more about you than it is who won today. But that's
why?
Okay.
Because you think that you deserve to win every time?
No.
Yeah.
Liar.
Yes, exactly.
For 2 specific reasons, Joe Rexroad is our winner this week.
Yeah, okay. So
the Vanderbilt facilities, to Joe's
Let
point,
her tell the reasons.
Vanderbilt doesn't need to necessarily be Alabama. It needs to have those level of practice facilities. A little bit makes a difference. And although $300 million isn't going to build you an entirely brand new squeaky clean stadium, it's a start. Also, Joe has a very good point that you can't necessarily judge this Tennessee team on what they did last year because it's a new offensive coordinator, it's a new head coach, and it's a new quarterback.
You know what Joe's other points were?
What?
I agree with Jared.
Okay, well, I'm not. Those are a
Those
wash.
were his other points.
When you agree,
when he's got to defer out of 2 of the 5 topics, he's got to defer to me.
Well, because you went first, so that's no fair. So if you agree, then it doesn't count. That's a wash.
But he didn't say anything that I agree with because everything he says is wrong.
Hey,
go ahead.
I'm secure enough in my opinions to agree, which is fine. And also your reasoning of like, someone tells Joe something off the record and he's get out of here, man. Just get out of here with your garbage.
No, if these people
Caroline.
tell you,
Thank you for being a good judge, Caroline.
You are welcome, Joe. That's what I'm here for.
If people say to Joe, like if they're like, nah, Joe, here's really our plan. Then Joe's like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's
right.
Ian,
You get
Ian,
one
here's
story
what
about
gets me.
Julio and the world is ending, Jared. I mean, come on.
Here's the
can't
one
even
thing.
Be serious with stuff.
Here's the one thing. And I'm going to need Ian to back me up here.
Ian, don't do it.
The idea of the Vanderbilt $300 million actually mattering is laughable to anybody who has looked at Vanderbilt or known about Vanderbilt for more than an hour. Like, they've talked and talked and talked and talked, and now they've got, nickels on the dollar for the rest of the SEC, and you're supposed to think that that's going to set them up for success? Ian, back me up on that.
You're so out of your depth on this. Like, you compared this to David Williams floating a story to us at the Tennessee about something he hoped to do. This is money that's raised.
It's the same old bull crap from Vanderbilt.
They have – okay, all right. You guys have got to go to a break at some point.
until they put a shovel in the ground, it's the same old stuff from Vanderbilt. Joe will probably be one of the ones wearing a hard hat.
Yeah, exactly.
When they take the picture, it'll be like Mayor Cooper.
He's going to have
Candace
the giant
Lee,
scissors.
The Chancellor, Clark Lee, Tim Corbin, Joe Rexrode, cutting right there.
With a big pair of scissors and the ribbon.
He'll be right there.
Vandy Joe.
Vandy Joe, baby. That's right.
Joe Rexrode tomorrow, Robbie and Rexrode. Joe, appreciate it. And
congratulations on the win, Joe.
That's such bullcrap.
Why?
Thank you, Caroline. Jared, hold that L, baby. Hold that L. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Joe. I mean, I knew this in my head. I knew that because you declared me the winner in week 1,
that is not the case.
No matter what Joe said, you were going to declare Joe the winner in week 2.
Absolutely, that is not the case. No way.
Ian, are you buying that?
I believe her as an impartial judge.
Sure, just because you think you deserve to win everything doesn't mean that you do.
Half of his answers in a debate segment where I agree with Jared.
So if you agree, then it doesn't count because you agree. That's not how this works. This isn't Jared agrees with Joe.
So if the 5 of us agree on everything, then there's no, or if the 5 topics, if the 2 of us agree on everything, then there can be no winner because it doesn't count if we agree.
Then I will make a new topic until you disagree. And the winner of that debate will be the winner of Jared versus Joe for the day.
You know what's funny? Is like 6 years from now. Because I think people struggle with this, the Vanderbilt stuff. And I tell you, I had Jordan Rodgers telling me like 4 or 5 years ago about it's not about the coach. It's not about the coach at Vanderbilt. And, I mean, we all remember how Floyd used to feel about Vanderbilt. I mean, Ian, I got to be honest with you. You get him teed up on Vanderbilt, and he could go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could get him going on Vanderbilt. You're going to learn. Like 4 or 5 years from now, when that stadium is that same death trap, hellhole that it is now, and they're still losing by 38 points to every good team, you're going to say to me, wow, you were right in that one day with Joe Rexrode because Vandy said that they had $300 million and they haven't done anything.
But the idea that $300 million isn't going to do anything isn't a fair point to make.
What's it going to do? What does $300 million do for a stadium in 2021? It gets you like maybe it can get you new toilet
It does
paper
more
holders
than
in the
nothing.
bathroom.
It's not gonna make you Bryant Denny. It's not gonna give you Neyland Stadium, but it is going to make improvements.
So that
whatever it may be.
So when you say set you up for success, you're talking about be better than ETSU?
Well, they're not that.
So
we learned that on Saturday.
I'm trying to figure this out.
We learned that on Saturday.
I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm just saying. I feel like Caroline was always going to have Joe be the winner. That's my opinion.
That's not true.
That's my opinion.
That is absolutely not true. I make the rules in this segment, so you don't get to
clearly,
nudge in.
Clearly.
This is a fair contest.
Jared versus Joe. We'll be back at it next week for Jared versus Joe, and I look to fairly reclaim my crown. Let me tell everybody about by the way, coming up next, Keyshawn Johnson said something that I don't even understand about the Titans. Like, just did not understand. And this goes back to kind of my thing with ESPN that's starting to bother me a little bit. We'll get to that coming up next. Invigorate Health, that's right. If you are feeling old, and a lot of people I know are feeling old, as I said, I'm in my 30s now. It's not the same as being in my 20s. Invigorate Health can get you back to your 20s. That's right. How? Because they've got the latest technology and their doctors and nurses will get the best program that fits you. Whether that means that you need an IV therapy, so just come on in, or their concierge service where they come to you and just, boom, put that right there in that vein. It can increase mental capacity, relieve stress, revitalize skin and hair, bolster your immune system, full body detox, and much, much more. Whether you've got a little belly fat that you'd like to tone up, maybe around your hips, your waist, they've got the M-Sculpt Neo. That's right. It's safe. It's not invasive. It's very, very simple for the M-Sculpt Neo. It goes to work on you. 30% less fat on average, 25% more muscle on average. As again, it attacks those areas where that fat likes to store up. So again, you'll be looking like you're in your 20s. And of course, hormone replacement therapy, therapies that can restore your vitality and are designed with you in mind. It's not one size fit all. It's not just for ED. It's not just for weight loss. It's not just for a lack of testosterone or whatever type of element you're missing in your body. It's everything. They will take great care of you because they are trained. And then again, just sign up a consultation. Just go in for a consultation and see what your levels are. And you'll figure out what you need in your life. That's Invigorate Health. Invigorate Health out in Mount Juliet. Invigorate Health, I absolutely love them. InvigorateHealthTN.com. Again, they've got weight loss programs, their top IVs, and much, much more. And, of course, those hormone replacement therapies. InvigorateHealthTN.org. Invigorate Health. My guys, go check them out today.
How excited are you to get going? And part of you even curious yourself just to see how this offense can be from the get-go?
Yeah, I'm excited. We have starting to get all of our guys back, which is nice. Had a really good start to the week on Monday, and look to build on that today. Just keep building momentum as we get closer to the game. So excited about having our guys back and the opportunity we have in front of us.
Yeah, that was Ryan Tannehill doing what he does best and saying not really anything. The one thing I'll give Tannehill credit for is when he's upset about something, he will let you know. But for the most part, it's all the same. Just really excited to get out there and get going. By the way, I'm disappointed in, I guess, what I would call my fans. I don't know if it's the right word.
Listeners?
I feel like most of my fans hate me anyways.
Probably.
But the amount of people that are not coming to my defense on Twitter or the text line over having clearly beaten Joe.
Why do you think you clearly beat Joe?
What good point did Joe make?
Joe made a good point about the Vandy United Fund. And although I'm with you that, it doesn't make a difference if there's not a shovel in the ground, $300 million is better than nothing.
So Vanderbilt has given us reason to be skeptical that this is actually going to come to fruition.
Yes.
And Vanderbilt has given us reason to be skeptical of whether or not that amount of money is actually going to help them really catch up when everybody else is spending millions and millions of dollars almost every year.
Do they need to catch up or do they need to be better?
You said set themselves up for success.
Yes.
If they can't keep up with anybody else, that gap grows larger and larger and larger, and I'm not sure that $300 million really makes that much of a difference.
But it's a start.
But you said set themselves up for success.
Yes.
Does
that make you unsuccessful if you invest $300 million in your program?
No, but could it actually mean that you don't really improve that much when everybody else is doing more than that?
It's improvement.
But everybody else that you're competing with is still doing it.
Okay.
So the gap stays the same. It just doesn't continue to grow larger.
So what would you say is the case? To invest $1 billion into the program?
Probably.
Well, then is that even possible?
Is it possible for Vanderbilt to invest $1 billion in their program? Yes. Are they going to do it? No. Is it possible? I mean, yeah, it's possible. T. Boone Pickens left all that money to Oklahoma State and totally changed all their facilities and everything. Phil Knight in Oregon. I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened. Is it going to happen? No. But
it's not like $300 million is just the amount of money that you can just bat an eye at.
I mean, if Florida announced a $300 million upgrade to their football stadium, it wouldn't. I don't think that it would even register. I mean, I think people would be like, "Yeah, we're updating our football stadium," but I don't even think you'd truly see the difference with a $300 million upgrade to Florida's football stadium.
Well, this isn't Florida. I think that Vanderbilt has so many possible updates that they could make.
But they're competing against Florida. They're competing against Georgia. They're competing against South Carolina, who puts money into their stuff. That's who they're competing with.
Okay.
I don't even think $300 million gets them closer to Kentucky. I'm telling you, all these teams spend money.
Yes, it does get them closer. Does it make them match Kentucky? Maybe not, but it gets them closer.
Okay, imagine a race, right?
Okay.
And you're going 60 miles an hour, and I'm going 10 miles an hour.
I understand the concept of a race.
Okay, so as you're going 60 miles an hour, and I'm going 10 miles an hour, after 1 hour, you will be 50 miles ahead of me.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Then after 2, you'll be 100 miles ahead, and so on and so forth. But the reason I say this, that it's important, is the other schools are still going.
Yes.
So the fact that Vanderbilt is staying here and the other schools keep going, they're now trying to go at the same speed the other schools are, but they're already so far behind that it's not going to make a difference as far as where those other schools are.
But it will make a difference. It's not necessarily going to make them
catch up. So something that we're skeptical that's actually going to happen. We're legitimately.
But let's just say it does.
Okay.
I'm operating under the conditions that it does.
But that is a big assumption.
Okay.
For a school that said a lot of bullcrap over the last decade about getting better facilities and improving things, and you've never even been to the football stadium. Have you been to the basketball gym?
No.
Okay, so you haven't even been to these places.
No.
And so you're making a big assumption.
But I know that they're bad.
That I'm not completely willing to make. And on top of that big assumption that I'm not willing to make, that you're willing to make, I still don't even I don't see how it helps you catch up to these other schools.
But that's what I'm saying is does Vanderbilt necessarily need to catch up to Florida?
Then what do you mean by Vanderbilt is setting themselves up for success?
Improvement.
So
because I think right now losing to ETSU is pretty unsuccessful.
Well, 2 years ago, Derek Mason beat ETSU by 30 points.
Okay.
Derek Mason went to, I think, 2 or 3 bowl games at Vanderbilt. He beat Tennessee 3 years in a row. Okay? Do you think that with $300 million that they can do better than any of that?
I don't see why it would hurt.
Do you think they can do better than James Franklin's back-to-back 9-4 seasons?
Why would having more money hurt?
I'm just saying that they're not. Your question is, does the $300 million set them up for success? I'm asking, will they win more games because of that money? You're saying, how could it hurt? That's not your question. Your question is, will it set them up for success? And my thing is, no. That they won't be the James Franklin Vanderbilt Commodores with Jordan Matthews and Jordan Rogers and that won 9 games back-to-back years. They won't be that team even with the $300 million.
But I'm thinking the standard for success this year for Vanderbilt is a lot lower than that because they just got blown out by ETSU.
But are we talking about success for the 2021 season or are we talking about success overall for Vanderbilt? So when Vanderbilt had this crap stadium and didn't invest any money into anything, they won 9 games twice. Derek Mason got to bowl games. They beat Tennessee 3 years in a row. And while Derek Mason's teams were borderline unwatchable for the majority of his tenure at Vanderbilt, at the same time, they were far ahead of where they are now. So now you want $300 million to get them better than they are now, but maybe not better than then. And
But
I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
They could do it then. They went, 8-4?
With Franklin?
Yes.
I think they went 9-4 twice, yeah.
9-4 twice. They did that with bad facilities.
Okay.
Add $300 million to those facilities. We don't really know exactly how far that gets them, but it's definitely an improvement. So if they could do that with terrible facilities, upgrade them even just the slightest bit, you don't think that could make a difference?
I don't think it will make a difference.
Do you think it could?
But see, now you're asking another question. Like, you keep changing the question. The question was, do you think it will set them up for success?
How do you know it won't?
No. You asked, do I think? I said no.
Okay.
And I gave you anecdotal evidence of why I don't think it matters, considering what the rest of the league sells. And now you're saying, but don't you think it could help? I mean, I guess. I think the Titans putting Logan Woodside at quarterback's a bad idea, but I guess he could be better than Terrio. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think Vanderbilt's version of success is winning the SEC East.
So then what is your definition of success for Vanderbilt?
Winning a few games.
Give me a record and a final season, like bowl game. What kind of bowl game? Like, give me that. What's your expectation for Vanderbilt? Should be on a year-in and year-out basis.
What the expectation should be? Winning all of the cupcakes. So let's say 4-8.
They can do that now without $300 million.
They didn't.
But that doesn't mean they can't, because that's what they've done for a long time.
But they didn't. But I'm saying right now, the standards that Vanderbilt has set for themselves,
so every time they lose a crap game, they have to spend $300 million. Because why not?
I didn't say that.
But that's what you're saying. You're telling me right now, Vanderbilt is at the bottom that it's ever been. I shouldn't say ever, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty low.
I mean, you don't remember like Woody Woodenhofer and Bobby Johnson's early years, and like go year by year with Vanderbilt's record starting in 1990. And that'll give you an idea of like what happened Saturday is not an aberration. That is like Vanderbilt. That is more Vanderbilt football than James Franklin beating Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee in the same season.
Yes, I know that.
Like that's more of what they are.
But that's the reality of it. And adding $300 million and investing that into the football program, like, isn't going to make it worse.
But it's not going to make it better. Like, it's not going to make Vanderbilt. You said set themselves up for success. When I hear, if you were to say, okay, Does Kyler Murray set the Arizona Cardinals up for success? My answer to that is no, because I don't think Kyler Murray's a franchise quarterback. I don't think Kyler Murray ever will be a franchise quarterback. I think Kyler Murray is better than a backup, and he'll be the starter in Arizona for the next 3 years, and then they've got a big decision of whether or not to give him a big contract, and if they do, they're going to be stuck with him like how the Raiders are stuck with Derek Carr, and they'll be in this abyss of, well, Kyler's not better Kyler's not good enough to win for us, but Kyler's better than all these other Case Keenums.
But if the Cardinals have $300 million to pay a quarterback, then yeah, that would probably help their football team.
I'm not sure that analogy really.
Then let's say $30 million. If you invest into something new.
The Indianapolis Colts have had $1 billion to pay quarterbacks for the last 3 years, and they haven't done it.
Well, that's just bad GMing.
No, it's not. It's that they can't find the guy. They're never bad enough to be able to pick him. There's not a guy out there other than Brady, who I'm not sure he wanted to go there. But there hasn't been a guy out there that they've been able to add. That's the problem, is they thought they had this great team. Andrew Luck retires. So you lose a high-end elite quarterback. And so you're trying what? I mean, you tried Brissett, and it doesn't work. You sign Rivers, and Rivers was okay, but you try, and then it's like, well, we got all this money, and we really want a good quarterback, but Green Bay's not trading Aaron Rodgers, and at the time, Houston wasn't trading Deshaun Watson, and so now it's like, who can we get? And it's either Darnold or Wentz. That's all you can do. And so they end up going with Wentz, and now they still don't have a quarterback. They have all this cap space in the world, can't find a quarterback.
But when you're dealing with a quarterback's success is up to so much chance. Improving facilities is very black and white and cut and dry. You either improve them or you don't.
But you're asking me if improving Vanderbilt's facilities, still to a point that's not good enough for the rest of their year in and year out competition, that is enough to beat cupcake games, which is better than what they are right now in this second, but not better than what they are historically, that is setting themselves up for success.
What do you think is success for Vanderbilt?
For me?
Yes.
6-6 every 3 years. So if every 3 years Vanderbilt can get to one bowl game.
So you don't need to be competing with the Floridas and the Georgias and the Alabamas of the SEC if you want to go 6-6 every 3 years.
Go look up Vanderbilt's all-time record. You tell me how many times they've been in bowl games since 1990. If you take Franklin out of it, Bobby Johnson went to 1, and I think Derek Mason went to 2.
Okay. Correct.
So we're talking about 3 bowl games since 1984, outside of James Franklin's 3.
So, yeah, since 2000, there was one in 1982, and then not one until 2008. There was 08, 11, 12, 13, 16, 18.
Yeah, so you throw out Franklin's 3 because he's an exceptional coach that they're never going to find again. So throw that out.
Why do you throw those out?
The 3 bowl games?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't need $300 million. They need James Franklin. And they can't go get James Franklin. So throw those out. That was an exceptional coach. Outside of that, in 30 years, Michael Jordan was not in the NBA. Between 2008, the bowl game they made before 2008, Michael Jordan was not even in the NBA at that point. That's how long it was. And so, to me, success is a bowl game every 3 years. When you go to 3 bowl games over 30 years, you go to 1 bowl game outside of Franklin's, 1 bowl game every 10 years. So I'm saying success is a bowl game every 3 years.
Okay.
And I just don't think that $300 million is going to make up the difference between where they consistently find themselves and what all has to be done and what would make a difference.
So it's better to just not do the $300 million at all?
Well, first of all, I'm skeptical of it, but it's if you're going to do it, you might as well just go out for $1 billion. It's like the Colts, right? Colts got all this money to pay quarterbacks. Can't find quarterbacks. So would you rather give Phillip Rivers $25 million and see where it goes? Or would you rather keep saving your money for the one opportunity you get to go get that quarterback, and then you do it?
But is there time for that?
For Vanderbilt?
Because the program gets worse and worse if you continue to not invest in your program. If you don't upgrade at all, then that gap continues to widen.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you push it down the line, and then you're forced to catch up even longer than you originally planned to.
Your point is $300 million is better than nothing. That is the argument you're making.
Yeah.
My point is $300 million doesn't really do all that much. It's like taking vitamin C when you have the flu. That doesn't actually help you get over the flu. But people think, hey, take vitamin C. Can't hurt. I look at the $300 million that Vanderbilt would get, and I think it would make such a small difference that it doesn't change the reality of what they are. $1 billion changes the reality of what they are.
And I see your point, and that money doesn't expire. You can continue to invest it and then, put it into the football program whenever you do think it would make a difference.
So you want to take a $300 million endowment and try to make money off of that Warren Buffett style, and then one day try to spend $1 billion.
Well, I'm just saying that I see your point in that you can save that money. You can invest it into the football program whenever you feel like it'll make a difference. But I'm saying I think that Vanderbilt is in such a critical position that if they do want to continue to see the fruits of that investment, then you have to do of the endowment of the $300 million, then you have to do it now. You have to continue to make steps. You have to continue to make progress.
No, if you were going to make that $300 million count, you needed to do that 6 years ago, 8 years ago.
So why would you wait even longer?
You needed to go to James Franklin before he left and said, we have $300 million for you in the bank right now to put into all the facilities just for you.
Well, they didn't. I mean, we could play they shoulda, coulda, woulda game all day.
Right. So now Vanderbilt has to – my point is the factors that matter to Vanderbilt, like what you want to make a difference, what you want to, as you would say, set themselves up for success, costs $1 billion. It's like I need a car to get to work, right? And it's like, all right, how much money do you have? If you have $5,000, you can find a car to buy that can get you to work. If you got $13, you're not going to find a car that's going to be able to get you to work. That's what $300 million is to Vanderbilt right now. It doesn't make a difference. They don't beat ETSU if they make a $300 million investment in the football facility. They beat ETSU if they have a better run program or a program that cares more about football and the players they bring in. If the admissions department changes how they operate, that would help Vanderbilt football more. If the university were to feature their football program more, that would help. But you're just talking about, well, $300 million, it can't hurt. I mean, anybody can make that argument about anything. More money will always help. But again, will that $300 million get Vanderbilt to a point to where they're consistently in bowl games? I don't think so.
I hear you.
Give me the records. Give me the records for Vanderbilt every year from 1984 to James Franklin showing up.
Okay. All I'm saying is if you're going to talk about the gap that has been created between Vanderbilt and the rest of the SEC, kicking it down the line isn't going to help.
I'm not kicking it down the line.
Yeah, you're saying, well, then wait until you have $1 billion.
No, that's what I was saying. So you mean that you would do that? I wouldn't do that. They have to have $1 billion today. Like, they have to have $1 billion. If you don't have $1 billion, it's like trying to buy a car with $13. Ain't gonna work.
But that is so black and white. That's the analogy that you're making. Okay, you either get to work or you don't. With Vanderbilt, there's no end. There's no absolute end goal there. It's just improvement. That's what every other program does. You improve your facilities. You're trying to get recruits. You're trying to attract recruits. So it's not as black and white. It's progress. It's continual progress. You said every other program in the SEC adds on to their facilities and invests in their facilities every single year. So it's not like there's one end destination for Vanderbilt that once you get it, it's done.
Oh, I'm in trouble because we got baseball at 6. I got to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I just think you're so flawed in all. I think it's so flawed. But we got baseball coming up. So I got to tell people, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I absolutely love those guys. They are fantastic. They take great care of my home, and I promise you that they can take great care of your home. It's simple. They're offering you credits for your old home systems. Trade in your old HVAC unit and earn up to $1,500 in credits towards select new systems. Upgrade from a standard water heater to a tankless water heater. Earn up to $500 with your trade-in. Trade up to a new electrical panel and earn up to $500 in credits for your old one. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be or Services Free guarantee. Their technicians are continuing to take measures to keep you and your family safe and healthy on every single call. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. They take great care of my home, and I promise you they'll do the same for you. Proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, Vanderbilt Commodores, and Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. So I'm sorry I didn't get to the Keyshawn Johnson thing, but it's time now for Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline's is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at BetUS.com, mention GAME to get up to 200% in bonuses on your first deposit. We've got Cubs and Reds tonight. I'm actually going to take the Cubs on the money line, minus 103. They snapped their 7-game win streak on Monday, but I think they get back on the horse tonight.
I'll take the Cubs.
Dodgers, Cardinals, give me the Dodgers on the money line. Adam Wainwright on the mound for the Cardinals, and I think that he is the better pitcher in this matchup, opposing Mitch White, but the Dodgers is just a better team.
I'm going to go with the Dodgers. The Dodgers are one of the best teams in the sport. The Cardinals pretty much feed on the recliner at this point for them. That's Caroline's. By the way, that game is coming up right after we check out.
Caroline's is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up for BetUS at BetUS.com. Mention GAME. Get up to 200% bonuses on your first deposit.
Let me say I apologize for not doing the Keyshawn Johnson thing. I promise we'll get to it tomorrow. That's it. We're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow.